stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Greetings, dear viewers. We are happy to welcome you at the online conference, Global Crisis USA. Our ancestors founded a free country for us so that we could live a decent and happy life. And they succeeded. It is prosperous, free, just, united, and most beautiful. A dream country for all freedom-loving people. We are all different. But since the day it was founded, our hearts have been united by one spirit, one constitution, one flag. And it is our America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. It raised us. And its vast expanses we've been learning, working, loving, and developing together. How is it that in one day we began to live worse than the countries we used to send financial aid to? Gasoline, electricity, and food prices skyrocketed. Record inflation is devaluing our salaries and eating away at our savings. How many of our citizens with good jobs and salaries are living in their cars simply because they can no longer afford to pay the increased rent on their homes? How is it that today we are forced to stand in line for chowder, that we are restricted from using electricity, that we cannot fill our car, that we have no drinking water? We are afraid of war, afraid of our own neighbors, afraid to let our children go to school, because even there it is no longer safe. Do you even remember what the American dream is about? This is the reality of America today. It is our reality. We have created it with our own hands. But the worst part of this reality is the worsening of the climate crisis, which our society has no influence on at the moment. Thousands of Americans are already suffering because of the climate, and soon millions of our citizens will be suffering. It is unbearable and scary to continue living like this. How can we save America? How can we save us all? Today, we will bring up topics that concern each American, and most importantly, we will give a solution that will be beneficial to every single person. It is the way out of all these crises that has brought us all together today at this momentous conference. It is time to show what Americans can do when we are all united. So let's get started.
We are witnessing a time when our country is falling apart. We are more divided than ever before. Our economy is showing alarming signs. The character traits that Americans are so proud of, such as respect, mutual help, and humaneness, are becoming few and far in between. Problems with education, healthcare, mass shootings, political unrest, riots, violence, human trafficking, and climate crisis are just a few unresolved problems that are on the rise, and no one can provide a solution. Until today, we did not see the light at the end of the tunnel. Until today. This event will mark the beginning of prosperous times for every American and for each and every person. We, the American people, deserve to live in safety, peace, and security. It's time to make the American dream a reality for all.
I absolutely agree with you, Roy. And our volunteers went out to the streets of American cities to hear the people's voice. Let's take a look at what concerns Americans today.
The biggest problem I see in society right now, living in the United States, is people value things over people.
The concerns that I have for the United States is the division that we have amongst each other.
I'm from Texas, so the shooting last week, it's terrifying. I don't have any kids of my own because I'm scared to bring a kid into this world. I don't want to, send them to school and be worried they're not going to come back.
When I have grandchildren, and I don't want them to be scared going to school.
I think the biggest crisis is I feel, people fight too much over religion and race.
Hate and racism. Racism is like an American tradition.
I would like, I should say I would like to live the way I want to live. But truthfully, do I think it'll get like that? No, I don't. I don't think it'll get like that due to just the color of my skin. I feel like I don't know, there's too much competition and all that in this world.
First and foremost, I think there's no excuse for there to be homelessness in this day and age. I think there's more than enough wealth in this country to meet people's needs. And I think that if we as a nation, we as a people, kind of put more the priority to being about meeting people's needs as opposed to me all the time, looking at just like caring about your community and its well-being as opposed to just your own self. I think that, homelessness could be ended, and I think wealth inequality could be a lot better than what it is right now.
I didn't expect to see people on the street, homeless people. So I want to think that the gap between the rich and the poor is so wide in the United States. I didn't expect to see that. I see the homeless on the street living inside tents, and it's something I see over in Cameroon. I didn't expect to see it.
Gravitation towards extremism and extreme division.
I think the inflation is really bad. It's really hard. Groceries used to be like $100 a week. Now it's like $250 every week.
$5, let's say gas, or your groceries. You used to spend $200 a month. Now you're spending $700 a month. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, the economy as a whole is pretty tough right now. We got inflation, rising cost of goods. That's tough. Wages, they've been pretty stagnant when it comes to the cost of rent. Home buyers, it's getting tougher and tougher to be a home buyer. We got all these corporations coming in, buying residential homes, making it tough for the regular mom and pop people trying to become a homeowner. So that's making it tough for the American dream to become true.
We do that, it might not be possible because of prices are going up 100-200%. Inflation is out of the chart. In my lifetime, I haven't seen this much inflation.
The resources, like food, gas, water, things like that puts a lot of people on edge too, because we're experiencing shortages here, shortages there, and famine and all this other crazy negative stuff. It's just like terrorizing and tearing this world down.
Corporate greed, and the way the tax system has been set up in the past years.
Affordability, people can't afford to live in the homes that they have. They can't afford the rent. They can't afford to feed themselves. They can't afford the medicine that they need. There's people, dying from diabetes.
Separations based on class, race, and it's definitely political. Stances have become a lot more extreme recently.
Democracy in general.
I would say politics, how everyone is against each other.
If the prices raise the way they are, where are people going to live? Now you really can't afford a home because the homes, even rent apartment, you can't do anymore. If you're going to raise them, then the salaries need to be raised also.
My biggest concern is the lack of financial education in school systems, because we all grow up in the same system. Go to school, get a diploma, go to college, get into debt, get a degree, and work there for the next 30 to 40 years and hope for a great retirement and depend on your employer. But unfortunately, that is not happening nowadays, and people are going back to work at 60 or 70 years old. So the lack of financial education needs to be solved today.
Well, I think we do have a lot of problems, but for me, the biggest one that scares me actually is climate change, because I genuinely don't know if by the time I'm 50, if the world will even be like in living condition.
I know FEMA gives out a lot of money for contractors to do a lot of disaster relief work, but we actually, as a nonprofit that I was working with, we had to actually go back and redo a lot of work that contractors did because they were just trying to get in and out as fast as possible. So I think that concept is called disaster capitalism, where, you know, making money off of people's natural disasters and what's happened there.
The biggest change, at least that we can witness in California, is obviously the wildfires. They're happening with greater frequency. Same with the drought. They're longer and more severe.
A lack of compassion for other people.
You know that things are bad. It is no longer a secret to anyone. You see how many issues there are. Today, we are going to look into the root cause of each one of them. And we'll talk about the solutions, how to fix all of this mess that we got ourselves into. To begin with, let's take a look at the economic crisis in the United States.
USA 2022, the real state of economy. By early 2022, Americans lost $500 billion of personal wealth. The steady growth in wealth was replaced by a steep decline. Poverty rate. According to Business Insider, in March 2022, the number of children living in poverty was over 17%. In just 3 months, from the end of 2021, the number of poor children increased by almost 3.5 million. 1 in 6 children live in families with incomes below the official poverty line. The children poverty rate in the United States remains one of the highest among developed countries. Since the beginning of 2022, the poverty rate has increased from 10% in January to 14.5% in July. Poverty rate in US is much higher and more extreme than in many other countries. This problem is partially being solved by the government. Experts estimate that on average, 59 million Americans receive social benefits each month. That is equivalent to 19% of the US population. If it weren't for social benefits and government support, there would be many more poor people in the United States. Inflation. The US is currently experiencing the highest rate of inflation in the last 40 years. This is a huge blow to the family budgets. We see the ever higher prices for everything from meat and potatoes to housing and gasoline. The cost of the basic basket of goods and services has increased by 11.5%. In July 2022, food inflation in the US reached its highest level since May 1979. This year, food prices are rising every month. Fruits and vegetables cost 8% more. Staples such as bread and cereal have jumped 14%, and butter and margarine are up a whopping 26%. Walmart says that shoppers are swapping lunch meat for beans in the latest sign that inflation is roiling low-income households. Wage growth has not been keeping pace with inflation. With the money we have today, we can buy less and less. Rent growth. Rents continue to rise at the fastest pace in decades, making housing costlier than ever for many Americans. People with the low wages suffer the most from this trend. In 2022, the situation worsened. According to Rents.com monthly report, the median price for renting a one-bedroom apartment in August 2022 was $1,769, and for a two-bedroom apartment, it was $2,105. This is 38% more than a year ago. Now, fewer people can afford to rent an apartment. The situation is aggravated by the fact that rents have moved up in parallel with rising home prices. The median home sales price rose nearly 17% last year to a record $346,900, according to the National Association of Realtors. Rising housing costs, combined with persistent inflation for basic necessities such as gas and food, left more Americans newly homeless and millions more fearing they soon lose their homes. We are in a very precarious moment where the cost of living is going up so quickly through the price of gas and food and rent that more people can't afford a place to live anymore. All these factors contribute to exacerbating problem of homelessness. Exacerbating problem of homelessness. Homelessness in America is a sign of a deep crisis. Today, shelters across the U.S. are reporting a great increase in the number of people seeking help. The waiting lists have doubled and tripled during the last months. Now, homeless people are living in temporary shelters or staying overnight in places not meant for living. A lot of people are living in tent camps, which are appearing in parks and other public places. In January 2020, there were more than 580,000 people in America experiencing homelessness, according to National Alliance to End Homelessness. The number of people without shelter has increased by 30% since 2015, decimating all efforts taken to improve the situation. Mortgages and debts are on the rise. Inflation, rising prices, a difficult situation are pushing Americans to take out more and more loans. In 2021, consumer credit debt in the US reached almost $15 trillion. That's about $93,000 per citizen. Loans for ordinary Americans are rising. Fighting inflation makes them even more expensive. To fight inflation, the Federal Reserve began to raise interest rates significantly. This slows down the economy, discourages business expansion, and increases the cost of consumer and mortgage loans. If these measures continue, they could lead to job losses, which would automatically lead to the problem of unemployment. Despite the growing crisis and impoverishment of the population, the richest people in the country have become even richer. According to real-time inequality, the wealth accumulation rate of the wealthiest people in the US has increased over the years of the pandemic. The net worth of the richest 1% has increased by a third since the beginning of the pandemic. This led to worsening of inequality in the US in 2021. 10% of the country's population owns 70% of America's income. Given the worsening economic situation in 2022, the level of inequality in the US will become even higher. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, income inequality in the United States is the highest among the G7 countries. So what can we expect from the economic crisis? Now, it is predicted to worsen for at least 5 to 6 years. And this crisis affects not only the US, but also China, Europe, and other countries. The whole world is going into a global crisis that can't be stopped in our format of economy. Inflation is worsening. The income of the poorest Americans and the middle class will continue to devalue. A policy of controlling inflation will bring more and more businesses and industries to a shutdown. This will lead to unemployment and even greater drop in income. In a situation when a lot of Americans are in debt along with rising rent and housing prices, more and more ordinary people will find themselves on the street without a livelihood, without access to health care, and without opportunity for education for their children. This crisis will exacerbate inequality in the US and around the world. The wealthiest will continue to build up their income and capital, while the poor will become even poorer. Now the crisis is being keenly felt by the lower classes, but very soon it will affect the middle class as well. Now, it depends on the action of everyone whether the US economy will be able to survive this global economic crisis. Our only chance is to implement the model of the creative society and change the principles of the modern economy so that it benefits all people.
Why the child poverty rate in the United States remains one of the highest among developed countries. This is a real tragedy and we are losing entire generation. I can't believe that such a large percentage of children are in need of food and other basic necessities in our prosperous and developed country. To me, this is a very alarming sign.
And the poverty has increased in the USA. It's 14.5%. In addition to that, 60 million people, or 20% of the population, are receiving food stamps or financial aid today, which is not so good compared to other developed countries. And the trend does not look optimistic.
Of course. That's why I understand why the streets of California are filled with so many homeless people, including homeless children. Can you imagine what a nightmare that is?
And all of us are experiencing rising food and housing prices, and many of us can't pay off credit cards. 42 million Americans miss the due date on a credit card payment. I even had to take a second job to support my family. Everyone wonders, why is this happening and who is to blame?
Today, we have Tally all the way from Silicon Valley, California. As a major in business administration, Tally has studied the question of economic degradation for many years, and now we'd like to hear from him.
We, ordinary Americans, are trapped in debt, rising inflation, rising interest rates, and ever higher prices for food and real estate. Today, 38% of American families live on less than $50,000 a year. And it is poverty, while 18% live below the poverty line. The middle class, once the backbone of the American economy, has steadily contracted over past decades from 61% to only 50% in 2021. Today, America's middle class has a smaller share of the US wealth than top 1%. Let us look at the reasons for this dramatically worsening situation for most Americans. The biggest factor here, devaluating the income of the American families and terrifying the whole world, is inflation. What has caused such a high inflation rate in the US? Well, the number one factor is the growth in the amount of money being printed, which outpaces the supplies of goods and services. When the world faced COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the US economy started to fall into a crisis. Government decided to support the households and businesses during this period and allocated $5 trillion for this purpose. And this amount was simply printed by Federal Reserve System in year 2020. It equals to 20% of the whole US GDP, which was the key trigger for the inflation. The second factor was the rise in the production cost due to breakdown of the logistics in the whole world. This has led to higher prices for the most goods and services. So disruption of the supply chain due to closure of airports and borders, as well as restricted transportation, has increased the cost of many goods. And the third factor that contributed to the inflation was the model of the modern economic system. The world economy is rapidly growing and becoming globalized, so the interconnections between different countries are becoming more and more complex. The market model that once was accepted by our world is no longer doing its job and creating growing number of problems for everyone, nations, businesses, and all of us. The Great Depression showed that market economy does not do its job in pure form. For a while, with help of government regulations, this model was somewhat managing social problems and financial crisis. But then came the different era, globalization. All countries are now dependent on each other, and turbulence in one country affects the whole world. No country can individually cope with a huge number of the extreme factors affecting its economy. So we need to take a look at this new solution. How do we fix this system and how do we create conditions for the globalized rapid development while we have AI developing and the global crisis threats are facing all of humankind. We need to combine the efforts of businesses, politics, and science and create another model of the world economy which will meet these challenges. The exactly one that brings benefits to all countries, businesses, and people. And such concept is being developed within the Creative Society project. This concept proposes a universal basic income that would satisfy everyone's basic needs, which is again turns on and stimulates purchasing power and growth of businesses and industries. The Creative Society model puts forward a predictable, stable, world-planned economy with no inflation, tax minimization, no duty fee, and no interest loans for businesses. The Creative Society is a model that overcomes divisions and dependencies of power and money and creates beautiful new world where human life has the highest value.
Dear friends, please share the information about the Creative Society with every single person you know. Because everything depends on you. Everything depends on our choice. Right now, we have a wonderful possibility to change our world. And only step that we need to take right now is to share the information and let every single person know about that possibility to change our world for the better.
Facts that we just heard are quite disturbing. Can we see that first graph? Income inequality is devastating. Middle class is shrinking faster than ever before. Society is polarized, and you can see how the wealth of the general population has been decreasing for decades. But look at the way it plunged since 2020. If that's not the beginning of a crisis, then I don't know what is. How do they plan to solve the problem of this huge debt bubble?
There are really no economic or even mathematical models that can solve the debt problem. It is tens of trillions of dollars that states owe to each other and hundreds in generalized debt. Historically, this kind of crisis always led to a war, and the winner was setting the rules to benefit themselves. And it makes no sense to repeat the same thing. Again, we have to start from scratch before it is all too late. All debts have to be reset. U.S. will benefit from it the most, as the debt of our nation is the biggest in the world. Otherwise, the economy collapsing, like now, that's going to be a hard fall for us to take.
That's true. Jason, so what do you think? So can we hear more about the solution? How do you transition to an economy which is interest and debt-free, a thriving economy that serves people? Maybe Kelly can answer this question?
Yeah, thank you, of course. Well, first of all, the economy has to have a goal. Without the goal, it's just like, we're not going to do it. And the goal has to be simple, to provide each one of us with everything necessary for living. So basically, it is called universal basic income. And the economy has to generate wealth for all of the people. That is the only way to actually avoid mass unemployment with the introduction of automation, which is already happening. We're already witnessing it. And we can take the best practices from big international corporations and see how they operate and generating profit for their stakeholders. There is no corporation basically in the world which could do business without the plan. And even if you take a small bakery store, they cannot do business without the plan. But we somehow think that invisible hand will figure it out on the world market. That's not working, and it's proven to be a failure. So that is the only way to avoid underproduction and overproduction, to have a plan. And we know how much our ecology is suffering from overproduction, by the way, these days. So yeah, I think first of all, we have to set a realistic goal for our economy.
But does a universal basic income mean that people will stop working?
Good question.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. People think if we're gonna have universal basic income, everybody gonna stop working. But of course not. Like, for example, would you stop making music or doing your business only because you met your basic needs?
No.
Yeah, I think so too. Nobody would stop doing what they love just because they covered basic needs. And this is just ridiculous to even think so. People always want to do better, and better than just basic level, right? And social status is also important. So people tend to aspire to do better. And the ability to do business and work, it is also very important. And it also has to be everyone's right, just as it is today. But we have to make the system work right for the benefit of people. Today, because of the debt slavery and fears of losing jobs and constant crisis, people are so stressed out that it is basically a constant stress, just constant basis, that many people just simply cannot handle it. And the system itself is driving people crazy. This is one of the major reasons why we have so many problems with mental health in the society, and simply we cannot call our society a healthy society.
Agree.
Thank you, Tali. And the economic decline also brings a lot of stress and instability into our society. And another topic that I wanted to bring up that's very close to me is mass shootings. And today, this is a huge, huge concern, not only for people, but for parents, for citizens, for all Americans, because that is one of the main topics that talked about today. And unfortunately, today we also see that the solutions that are being provided are not going to solve anything. Whether we take the guns away or whether we keep the guns, we still need to have another solution. So we would like to hear more about this topic, and maybe we can watch a video to see what can we do as a society to keep our kids safe.
Car accidents are no longer the leading cause of death among children in the United States today. How is it that one of the most developed countries in the world became a leader in the number of child deaths from firearms? We are unable to protect our children. From 2019 to 2020 alone, the number of such deaths increased by 33%. This number keeps rising. More than 4,300 children have died since 2020. Is it normal that no one today can be sure that their child will come home from school alive? There are about 400 million civilian-owned firearms in the United States. We already have more guns on hand than there are people in the country. And in spite of this, we still don't feel safe. There were 417 mass shootings in 2019, 611 in 2020. And last year, this number has increased to 693. In 2021, 40,000 people were shot dead. That's comparable to the population of cities like Concord in New Hampshire or Lenexa in Kansas. Every year, an entire city is shot down. We elect these or those politicians hoping that a new government will change the situation. But the number of shootings and the amount of violence is only increasing. Some people yell that free access to guns is to blame, while others say that it's our Second Amendment right. While they are butting heads with each other, our loved ones continue to die. In our consumerist society, human life is worthless. And this is why we are unable to solve this problem. Doesn't this make you wonder about our priorities as a nation? Where is our common sense? Common sense is in building the creative society in which human life is the highest value.
You know, every time I watch the news that more and more include reports on the mass shootings in schools, my heart aches. My heart aches for those parents. My heart aches for, our society. I cannot imagine what the victims' families are going through. And, a question arises, isn't our society that hopeless that we cannot solve this problem today? It's one of the most critical problems, I would say, that we have.
Well, before Jason answers that, the truth is, many people refuse to even think about this problem because they see no way out of the crisis, But the solutions that are being offered, this virus of aggression is too deep, I feel like, in the bones of the people,
Yeah. But if we want to call ourselves civilized society, we definitely need to do something. We definitely need to find a solution to this problem. And let's hear today the opinion of a retired veteran and the father of two, Jason Bell.
As a veteran, one becomes acquainted with violence and develops the ability to operate in that violence. But when did this become the acceptable norm in our society? In 2009, a shooting occurred on a military base, and it became embedded in people's minds that a mass shooting is something where a bunch of people die. Well, unless you study this topic or have some experience, of course this is the embedded image. Our media brings up these topics only when they are convenient talking points to create and benefit from some political wedge issue. Is it not our hope that our children make it to adulthood and become fully prepared for the life ahead of them? So why is it that our morals are constantly degraded to the point that we are stuck in fear and indecisiveness? Our values have degraded very much. Just look and imagine. Our country has been at war or in conflict longer than I have been alive. This includes abroad and here at home. Is it no wonder that we stay stuck in this state of hopelessness? So tell me, even though we feel that this is wrong and not normal, why do we keep consuming the news that only portrays a narrative beneficial to propagating this behavior? You see, there is an understanding in developmental social psychology that media plays a role in the worldview of a human being. Since 2015, there has been a constant increase in attention-seeking motivations for mass shootings. They receive more coverage. The Violence Project has found this to be one of the reasons mass shootings are carried out. Analysis of the amount of mass shootings has revealed it to be 314 this year alone. This year isn't over. I am sure that you value your life and your loved ones' lives as well. So why is any loss of life acceptable at all in a society that prides itself on protecting its tribe? Let us now look at the common solutions argued in the media and used to divide us at the dinner table. Reactionary measures are the most commonly used solution. As we train our children to hide under the school desk, an active shooter knows the same information. Our actions are similar to instructing murderers where and how to commit their crimes in order to gain more attention. Now take away the guns. This is what many find themselves going to. That's not the answer either, because at least for us, this is one of the reasons this country exists. That is our ability to answer any perceived authority that infringes upon our liberties. Okay, so what is the solution? Think about this as we move forward. The United States is a collection of unique individuals who make up states. We are known to pride ourselves on caring deeply and heavily for those we love. We pride ourselves on working tirelessly and without complaint for our children. so they too can enjoy the American dream. Well, if this is the case, let's look at the solution then. The Creative Society format, the 8 pillars, allow for the restoration of our moral values and give us the means to use governance, that is self-governance, and technological advancement to protect all human life. But we can't seriously answer this without being sure that we value human life, as is stated in the first pillar. Human life cannot and should not be a business. Matter of fact, pull out a quarter from your pocket or from your change jar. Are you ready? On your quarter dollar, we have e pluribus unum, and that is out of many, one. Let us return to this idea through the Creative Society format.
Out of many, one. Great. Thank you so much, Jason, for bringing this out. Thank you so much for this information. It's very, very thought-provoking. And we understand that the situation with the mass shooting in America is a disaster. And it's taking away numerous lives each year, and it only gets worse and worse. But even more lives are being taken by climate disasters now. And if with the mass shooting we still can come to our senses as a society and stop it, in the case with the climate, we have an enemy that is ruthless and takes no hostages. There is nothing we can do in the current format to prevent even more devastating losses in upcoming years. Just to show you how much of a problem this is, we have a video prepared with the statistics and the latest facts on extreme climatic events. Let's watch it together.
Climate Disaster Monitoring, USA, 2021 to 2022. Tornadoes. Kentucky, Louisiana, Texas, South and Mid-Atlantic Eastern U.S., Iowa, Texas, Georgia, Kansas, Central U.S., Texas, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio, West Virginia.
Let's go.
According to NOAA monitoring, there has been a rapid increase in the number of tornadoes across the United States. In December, there are on average 24 tornadoes per month. But in 2021, December set an all-time record, 232 tornadoes. That's almost 10 times more than the norm. As early as March 2022, a new record was broken. On March 5th, a series of devastating tornadoes struck Iowa with abnormally high strength and the longest path of any known tornadoes at this time of the year. And already in April, a single series of tornadoes caused more than $1 billion in damage alone. This chart shows that the path of tornadoes across the land is getting longer and wider. In the near future, given such progression, the most powerful tornadoes will occur year-round, even in those areas of US where they have never happened before. Storms and hurricanes. Hurricane Ida. Central US, Southern California, South and Mid-Atlantic Eastern US, Midwest, Northeast US, Montana, Minnesota, South Dakota. According to the study, the number of powerful hurricanes has increased by 30%. Hurricane Ida intensified abnormally fast and jumped from Category 2 to a Category 4 in about 24 hours. If earlier hurricanes used to weaken after reaching the mainland, Ida maintained its strength and affected 22 states. Ida became one of the most expensive hurricanes in US history, with at least $75 billion in damage. The number of convective storms that have caused more than $1 billion in damage is growing at an unprecedented rate. Between 2000 and 2010, 34 such storms occurred, and in the next 11 years, there were already 93. Abnormal heat and drought. California, Texas, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, extreme heat waves across the country have become longer and more intense. In the United States, extreme heat is the leading cause of death from natural disasters among our citizens. Every year, the temperature anomalies increase. Today, 66% of our country suffers from drought. Moreover, 27% are the most dangerous types of drought. Since 2000, their area has grown more than fivefold. The mega drought has affected more than 2/3 of the states that are vital to the U.S. agricultural sector and support nearly half of national production. According to the current drought progression, within a few years, the U.S. territories may become completely unfit for agriculture and even for life. Abnormal rains and flash floods. Washington, Alaska, Yellowstone National Park, Montana, Virginia, Missouri, Kentucky, Death Valley National Park, California, Nevada, Texas, Mississippi. Within days, mega droughts are followed by mega floods. The Death Valley is the most arid place on the planet where rains are exceptionally rare. This July, a year's worth of rain fell here within just one morning in St. Louis, Missouri. A quarter of the annual rainfall fell within just 12 hours. Such flood used to occur every 1,000 years. But in the summer of 2022, in less than 1 month, 5 1,000-year floods occurred in the United States. Some 70 million people were affected. Wildfires, Marshall Fire, Colorado, Calf Canyon, and Hermit's Peak Fires, New Mexico, McKinney Fire, California. This year alone, wildfires in the US have already burned 160% more land than the 10-year average. As of August 30th, the damaged area was more than 7 million acres, the equivalent to the area of the state of Massachusetts. Almost half of all the area affected by fires is in Alaska. The northernmost state is experiencing the largest wildfire season in its history. Wildfires in the US have become not a seasonal threat, but a year-round danger. Only 50 years ago, there was no such thing as megafires, while in 2021, there were 13 megafires recorded, and dozens more almost reached this area. The Marshall Fire in Colorado broke out in late December. Its winds accelerated to a speed of a Category 3 hurricane and became the most expensive fire in the state's history. Losses totaled $2 billion. Climate disasters are increasingly hitting the global economy. In the US, over the past 10 years, the climate has caused more than $1 trillion in losses, and 2/3 of this amount falls in the recent 5 years. In 2021, losses from the natural disasters total $169 billion, which is 95% above the 21st century average. Over the last 30 years, the number of natural disasters has been growing at a shocking rate. But that's not the trouble yet. The real trouble lies ahead.
Wow, that footage is shocking, and we are in huge trouble. I had no idea that so many disasters have occurred in the United States in that short period of time. This really proves that we have a problem with the climate, and it's a much bigger problem than any of us imagine.
Absolutely. And to me, this video shows a complete picture of what the current situation is. And while our friends from the West Coast are suffering from the droughts and lack of water, here on the East Coast, we are drowning in floods and surf torrential rains. And of course, we understand that climate disaster impact the global economy. In the US, over the past 10 years, the climate has cost more than $1 trillion in losses. Just think about this number.
If last year there were many skeptics who said this is natural warming, which has happened many times before, or there was ones that said, we are fine, our region is definitely not going to be affected. Maybe last year, there were many people like that, but not this year. As we have just seen, this year has revealed the real global scale of the planetary climate crisis. People have seen it with their own eyes, and many have felt how intensely this global climate crisis is actually aggravating. And right now, actually with us, we have Diana, who's an eyewitness. She witnessed the tornado that happened in Kentucky. And Diana, I would like to invite you, and so that you can share your story with us and with the viewers.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And as you all know, on December 10th, an EF tornado hit the United States and affected 10 states, including Kentucky, with an epicenter in Mayfield. And EF4 is the second strongest tornado on the enhanced Fujita scale. It was the most destructive tornado in Kentucky history, and we were completely unprepared for it. As a Kentucky resident, I was heartbroken when I heard about the tornado in Mayfield. The sirens went off at 4 a.m. on December 10th. Even 300 miles away from the epicenter in Lexington, it was very frightening. When I visited Bremen, Kentucky, they lost 10 people within their town. For a town this small, losing 10 people is a huge loss. The whole town was locked down by the National Guard, and only volunteers or local residents were allowed to enter. Overall, 77 Kentuckians were killed in this disaster. Even today, there are multiple people that are still missing, and a state of emergency was declared. Along with 10,000 Federal Emergency Management Agency claimed they were made. Also, 10,000 people have lost everything, and in some cases, people lost their loved ones. Some of them lost their parents, some of them lost their children, and people were completely unprepared for this type of a catastrophe. I have seen people's pain, and it's terrifying. It's hard to go through a loss of everything, along with losing your loved ones in a consumer society. People who went through the Kentucky tornado received psychiatric support at Bremen, Kentucky. After the tornado, an enormous number of volunteers showed up to start cleaning and helping people. The damage that the tornado caused is hard to quantify and express, as so many human lives were lost. But this was not the end of the disasters for Kentucky. Even as 7 months later, people were still trying to get their lives back to normal. Kentuckians experienced the worst flooding they've ever seen, and another state of emergency was declared on July 27, 2022, resulting in death of 40 human lives. Many of the roads were so flooded that even today, people who live in eastern Kentucky can only get their baby formulas delivered by horses. Can you imagine starting your life from scratch as a climate survivor? To lose everything, or even loved ones? Now we see that climate disasters are gaining momentum around the world. Already millions of people are experiencing this terror from the elements, and this disaster has already come to our home, the United States. Yes, we have a lot of problems in our country right now, but we're a strong nation. Having been to the scene of a tragedy in Kentucky, I saw with my own eyes how ordinary people unselfishly help each other. Volunteers from other states brought food and first aid supplies and took the initiative to rebuild homes. It shows our people's enormous potential in humanity when we unite around one common goal. And to ensure that this terrible tragedy that happened in Kentucky is not going to be repeated anywhere else, not in the United States or anywhere else on the planet, we need to unite our potential and build the creative society. Don't you think we can do this, America? Let's become the golden standard for the world to follow. Let's build a creative society where human life is the highest value.
Yes, Diana, you are right. Indeed, the situation.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that heartfelt story. It's devastating to hear that so many lives have been lost. You're right. The situation in society is definitely complicated. Many are already voicing that we are not the United States of America, but the divided states of America. But we must remember what has been making our country great through all these years. It's the people. We are America, right?
Yeah.
Our strength is in unity. Our uniqueness is in diversity. Americans are wonderful people. ready to lend a helping hand to each other when one is in need. You are absolutely right that we really need to change the format of the living from a consumerist dead end to the creative society.
My friends, loved ones, and colleagues, and my fellow Americans. Share this conference with everyone you know. Watch it, discuss it at the dinner table, and importantly, share it on your social media platforms. Because if we don't talk about it, then how can we make a change?
Today, it is already obvious for everyone that climate is changing, and no one can really deny that. Although we are being told that this change is human-made and is caused by anthropogenic CO2 emissions. But is that really the case? Can humans affect the climate that much? There has been an uneven fight against CO2 emission for almost 4 decades. They implemented new taxes, quotas trades on markets, and billions of dollars have been allocated from budgets to green projects. But the more we fought CO2, the more money we invested into this fight, the more things with climate were actually getting worse and worse. So to start with, let's understand what CO2 is and how much of it do humans emit.
The climate is changing rapidly. Today, we're told that our greatest enemy is anthropogenic CO2. To fight CO2, they tell us to shut down plants and factories, stop heating our homes and filling our cars with gasoline, stop eating meat, and stop showering. We're also told that we should breathe less, stop having children, and generally reduce the human population on the planet. And of course, we should pay more taxes as much as possible. This unequal battle with CO2 has been going on for over 40 years already. But so far, these measures have not been successful. On the contrary, from one climate conference to another, the level of CO2 in the atmosphere only continues to grow, completely ignoring all international rights and norms, as if we're paying for it to grow. Do you even know how much CO2 is actually in the atmosphere? Carbon dioxide is a trace constituent that is critically low in the atmosphere. According to the official data, the level of CO2 is 400 ppm. What does this mean? ppm means parts per million. In other words, there are 4 molecules of CO2 for every 10,000 molecules of air in the atmosphere. But we're told that these molecules trap heat coming from the Earth and warm the atmosphere. But how can 4 molecules trap heat for 10,000 other molecules in the atmosphere? How can such tiny concentration have any effect on the climate at all? Even a school student would understand that they can't. Yes, CO2 is increasing, and no one is denying that. It is known that CO2 has increased from 315 ppm to 400 ppm over the last century, which may seem like a huge increase. But in reality, this increase of atmospheric CO2 is merely 0.008% in terms of the entire atmosphere, or the addition of only 1 molecule per 10,000 other molecules in the atmosphere. Hold on a second though. It's not just humans that add CO2 to the atmosphere. There are also natural sources such as oceans, volcanoes, trees, and marshes. How much CO2 does humanity produce then? Just imagine, the whole world is being taxed for emitting only 1.3% of all CO2 in the atmosphere. How can one make sure of that? You can take the official data on anthropogenic CO2 emissions in all countries, add them up, and compare it with the CO2 content in the atmosphere. Now, the moment of truth. In 2020, over 33,000 megatons of CO2 were emitted in total in all countries, while the atmosphere contains 2.5 million megatons of CO2. That means, in reality, 98.7% of CO2 is added to the atmosphere by natural sources. even if we stopped all the factories and plants in the world, and even if we stopped breathing, it would result in a CO2 reduction of less than 1 ppm out of 400 ppm by 2050. Meanwhile, disasters are already destroying lives and entire countries for completely different reasons. CO2, let alone humans, has no effect on warming whatsoever. If you look at the data over the past 160 years, you will see that despite all the efforts of humankind to emit more CO2, this gas could not decide whether to heat the atmosphere or to cool it. Similarly, before the industrial age, the planet heated and cooled on its own without any help from humankind. Curiously enough, during the 2020 pandemic, humankind significantly reduced its CO2 emissions. The entire world was under quarantine, plants and factories were shut down, and the air in the cities was cleared of exhaust fumes. However, the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere continued to grow regardless of the quarantine. And this is understandable. After all, humankind adds only 1 molecule per million of other molecules in the atmosphere. The main orchestrator of atmospheric CO2 is the ocean, since about 95% of the Earth's carbon dioxide is dissolved in its waters. When the ocean cools down, it absorbs gases better, and the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere decreases. Conversely, heat from the warming oceans is transferred to the air, and only after 11 to 12 months, there is an increase in CO2 in the atmosphere. In other words, the increase in carbon dioxide is a consequence of a heating, not its cause. And humanity has nothing to do with this process, nor does it have anything to do with climate change. But if CO2 increases naturally, it must intensify the greenhouse effect anyway, right? That is absolutely not the case. The most important greenhouse gas is water vapor, whose content in the atmosphere is 50 to 100 times more than all the CO2, and is water vapor that creates up to 95% of the greenhouse effect. There is no point in discussing man-made contribution, and is water vapor that creates up to 95% of the greenhouse effect. There is no point in discussing man-made contribution to the greenhouse effect, as it is less than 0.117%. But perhaps most surprisingly, according to experiments and theoretical calculations, the growth of CO2 in the atmosphere has a cooling effect. Scientists did a field experiment where they built greenhouses and pumped carbon dioxide into them. And this experiment showed that increasing concentration of CO2 only slows down the heating of the atmosphere. You can conduct such experiment yourself using the materials at hand. You can watch a video of such an experiment using the QR code on the screen. Now, we know that atmospheric CO2 concentrations is so tiny that not only does it not heat up the atmosphere, but on the contrary, it cools it down. Anthropogenic CO2 emissions are negligible and are not able to affect the climate in any way. And another question remains: why are natural sources emitting more and more CO2 today? Ice cores from the last pre-industrial 100,000 years, when there were no cars or factories, contained CO2 concentration that were well over today's 400 ppm, for example, between 700 and 2,500 ppm. For some unknown reasons, however, these data began to disappear from the articles in 1985, which strangely coincided with the establishment of the Advisory Group on Greenhouse Gases that later became the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. But then, another reasonable question arises. What can cause such a significant increase in CO2 if humans are not to blame? Our planet is currently going through a period of global climate catastrophes occurring cyclically every 12,000 years. During this period, due to the changes within the planet, volcanoes and earthquakes become more active, causing magma to ascend and the ocean to heat up enormously. Heating of the deep ocean and awakening volcanoes are causing the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere to increase rapidly. And this happens every 12,000 years. While they are creating an illusion of fighting the negligible amount of CO2, millions of people are dying, cities are being destroyed, and the number of climate refugees is growing. The only way to escape the escalating disasters for us is to unite in order to build a creative society. Only together can we create a better world for our children and save billions of human lives. Our future depends on each and every one of us.
This actually might be quite shocking to many, the fact that CO2 is rising because of the ocean water getting warmer. Many million years ago, the CO2 level was as high as 7,000 ppm, and now it is only 400 ppm. So where did the difference go? It's all stored in the ocean waters. And ocean is the primary storage of CO2. And the way it works is like this. When ocean gets cooler, it absorbs CO2. And then when ocean waters get warm, they start releasing CO2 back into the atmosphere. So believers of anthropogenic theory try to convince us that the ocean warming up because of the human emissions of CO2, when in fact it is the complete opposite. You'll find out the true cause of warming up of the ocean waters just in a few minutes.
Oh, I like the suspense. Yes, it is indeed. Isn't it interesting that during the pandemic, when the industry slowed down, CO2 should have stopped rising, but it continued to grow? However, it is not surprising at all, since humans only emit a little over 1% of CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, and the rest comes from the ocean. And it is also worth noting that swamps and trees have recently started doing the same. Normally, they should be absorbing more carbon dioxide than they produce, but now, something strange is happening. They have become net producers of CO2. And also, from the video we watched at the beginning, we saw that the record-breaking wild megafires became a year-round active threat. There are more and more of them, which also significantly contributes to CO2 levels going up.
Yes, so even if we stop all factories as planned by 2050, we will reduce CO2 levels by only 1 ppm, that's 1 particle per million. That is absurd, just like building plants that capture CO2 out of the atmosphere. That's very CO2 that is emitted by the ocean. And many of these plants have already been built using governmental grants, hundreds of millions of dollars. And according to the estimations, they were supposed to capture 4,900 million tons of CO2 every year. But they only captured 0.2% of that amount. While at the same time, they successfully captured 100% of the budget money wasted on them.
This would be funny if it wasn't my money, taxpayers' money. But when I pay taxes, I expect those to be spent in a better way to improve our lives. But 0.2%? This is ridiculous. I hope it is obvious now to all sensible people that all these programs aimed at fighting CO2 have nothing to do with impact on climate. Let's take a look at the real causes of climate change.
One of the well-known signs of global warming is the melting of glaciers. It is no longer a secret that glaciers melt from the bottom up. But why is it happening this way? Let's take a look.
Everyone has already heard that glaciers are melting catastrophically fast. But have you heard about how exactly they are melting? 90% of all glaciers on the planet are located in Antarctica, where they are disappearing the fastest. What is striking is that this is taking place solely in the western part of Antarctica, whereas in the east, record-breaking cold temperatures are being recorded. A logical question arises: why is Antarctica melting only on one side? And the answer is quite simple. West Antarctica has a totally different geology. It consists of thin blocks of the Earth's crust that are separated from each other by large tectonic faults, rift zones. And in these zones, greater amounts of heat are released. For example, scientists from Germany and the British Antarctic Survey mapped the geothermal heat flow in West Antarctica using data from aeromagnetic observations beneath the Thwaites Glacier. They discovered an area where a huge amount of heat comes from the Earth's bowels. According to scientists, this is due to the fact that the glacier lies in a tectonic trench where the Earth's crust is much thinner. West Antarctica is one of the largest volcanic regions on Earth. There are more than 140 volcanoes sleeping under the ice, and they are now much more active than the scientific community previously believed. A team of researchers from the University of Rhode Island discovered a new factor in the rapid melting of the Pine Island Glacier in Antarctica. It's an earlier unidentified active volcano buried deep beneath the ice. Evidence of volcanism was indicated by high concentrations of the helium isotope, which comes exclusively from the Earth's mantle. According to Professor Karen Haywood, geothermal heat from the West Antarctic Rift warms the ocean water. This in turn leads to the acceleration of ice sheet melting. Thus, it is the geothermal heat from volcanoes that is contributing to the rapid melting of the Antarctic ice sheet, not global warming at all. But why are there so many volcanoes under the ice of Antarctica? NASA experts have found out the reason based on data from NASA's IceSat and IceBridge satellites. They have concluded that under the surface of West Antarctica, there is a large mantle plume that is a flow of red-hot magma which rises and expands beneath the Earth's crust. According to the scientists' calculations, this area is warming with almost the same intensity as the Yellowstone supervolcano. The heat flux measures 150 milliwatts per square meter, reaching 180 in the rift areas. This is about 3 times as much heat as the adjacent rock layers receive. Thus, all indications are that glaciers in Antarctica are melting, not at all due to anthropogenic factors, but due to the volcanic heat. At the same time, the temperature of the Earth's crust is rising and parts of the territory are elevating abnormally. Why does the scientific community ignore the connection between all these phenomena? Equally intense ice melting is also taking place on another part of the planet, in Greenland. Research conducted in October 2020 showed that Greenland's ice is now melting faster than ever before in the past 12,000 years. In 2019 alone, Greenland's ice sheet lost the most ice in recorded history, 600 billion tons. It is also surprising that giant lakes appear under the surface of the glacier, which is actually 1.5 kilometers thick. As of today, we already know about 6 dozen subglacial lakes of Greenland. The temperature of the ice surrounding them is around minus 28 degrees Celsius. But these lakes do not freeze. Why? Several research groups of scientists joined in the effort to find an answer to this very question. They discovered the fact that under Greenland, just as under Antarctica, there is a mantle plume. Geothermal flows coming from its bowels cause formation of subglacial lakes and melting of glaciers. Using gravitational research, a team of American scientists led by Professor Ralph von Friese estimated the thickness of Greenland's crust. Active melting of glaciers has been observed in the northern part of the island, where the crust is thinner and an increased geothermal flow due to the rising mantle plume has been detected. Using seismic tomography data, scientists from an interdisciplinary team at the Schmidt Institute of Physics of the Earth saw that the flow of magma rises from the center of the core to the Earth's surface right beneath the central part of Greenland. This is where the largest number of subglacial lakes are located. The scientists have calculated the theoretical heat flux corresponding to this magma chamber and found that this heat is sufficient to warm the base of the glacier up to the melting point of the ice. These same results have been confirmed by similar studies using machine learning technology. that the world's two largest glacial regions, Antarctica and Greenland, are melting because of increased geothermal flows coming from the interior of the planet. But what is intensifying them? Mantle plumes have been beneath the glaciers for millions of years, but it is today that their magma rises closer to the Earth's surface and causes increased heating of the Earth's crust from the inside. This indicates that abnormal processes are starting to occur in the bowels of the Earth, in its very core.
So, it turns out that the magmatic hotspot under Antarctica and Greenland have been under the glaciers for millions of years. But the intense melting of these glaciers has begun simultaneously only since 1995.
Exactly. So for some reason, magma under the glaciers began to rise up after 1995 and melt the glaciers from below. Now, remember this year, you will hear it a lot today.
Another unexpected fact is that starting from the very same 1995, deep waters in the Weddell Sea, right next to the West Antarctica, has begun to heat up. In the Weddell Sea, the water is hidden at the ocean floor at the depth of more than 2,000 meters. And at the very same time, the upper 700 meters are almost not heating up at all.
And this is not surprising. After all, the Weddell Sea is bounded on all sides by volcanic structures that are currently active.
Yes. So the Weddell Sea has been heating up since 1995, and this is caused by the rise of magma.
Today, the heating of the ocean floor is not only happening in the Weddell Sea region, but also all over the world. And why don't we watch a quick video on that as well?
The ocean is the source of life for the entire planet, and for us, humans. But it ceases to be the source of life. It is about to become the source of our death. Just think about it. Ocean warming has increased by 450% in just 30 years. According to scientific estimations, for the ocean to heat up at today's rate, it would take as much energy as would be released if 7 atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima would explode every second for a year. The direst fact is that the ocean is heating not only on the surface, but also at depth. A team of US researchers has found that the average depths of the ocean warmed 15 times faster over the past 60 years than they had been warming over the previous 10,000 years. And this progression is accelerating every year. At the moment, science has no explanation where this amount of heat comes from. The only theories being considered are that the oceans are warming from the sun and from human emissions of the greenhouse gas CO2. But they can only explain heating of the upper layers of the ocean to a depth of up to 200 meters, because sun rays do not penetrate deeper. The water can be maximally heated by the sun up to 700 meters as a result of agitation. How can we explain the numerous facts of warming of the deep ocean layers? Think about it. How much energy does it take to heat such a volume of water as the world's oceans? We already see examples of such anomalous heating everywhere, not only on the bottom, but also on the surface. At the end of 2013, a huge area of unusually warm ocean water, about 1/3 the size of the United States, formed in the Gulf of Alaska, and it began to spread. The water temperature in many places exceeded the norm by 5 to 6 degrees Celsius. National Geographic dubbed it the blob that cooked the Pacific. Nick Bond, state climatologist for Washington, named this phenomenon the blob. The appearance of such anomalies began to suddenly become more frequent. There is something common that unites the places of formation of all these blobs. These are geologically active regions with a young, thin crust, with active underwater volcanoes, cracks, and deep crustal fractures. These are places of the most active output of hot and fluid magma. The ocean is called the kitchen of weather. The warming of its waters already enhances catastrophic typhoons and hurricanes, which annually claim thousands of human lives.
The unprecedented heating of the ocean suggests that the ocean is already exhausting its ability to contain the energy trying to escape from the bowels of the Earth. And when magma reaches the denser and thicker rocks of the continental crust, which on average is 2 to 3 times thicker than the oceanic crust, then the processes of cascading eruptions of land volcanoes will begin, and it will be too late to stop this process or to seek salvation. We must do everything now so as not to regret later on that we didn't do enough to build the creative society.
The way that the ocean heats at the bottom is truly shocking. It is important to note that the thermal anomalies in the ocean started to appear more frequently after 1995.
So what happened in 1995, you're going to ask? It is well known that since 1995, the magnetic North Pole began to shift rapidly with an increasing speed, which eventually became 4 times greater than usual.
In 1995, simultaneously with the displacement of magnetic pole, the planet's axis of rotation began to move rapidly, 17 times faster than before. At the same time, there was registered one of the stages of unprecedented leap-like acceleration of the planet's rotation. You can see it on the graph of shortening of the day length. Yellow lines indicate how quickly the day begins to shorten, and the red arrow marks the stage in 1995. And judging by the trends, the speed of the planet's rotation will only keep accelerating.
And all these changes are related to the changes in the rotation of the planet's core, because it is the core that generates that magnetic field and affects the rotation speed of the planet. Now, let's see what has been happening to the planet's core and what has happened after 1995.
Another important evidence confirming that abnormal processes are taking place in the core is the drastic acceleration of the North Magnetic Pole's drift by 3.5 times over the past 20 years. Together with the extreme acceleration of the North Magnetic Pole movement, a mysterious anomaly weakens the planetary magnetic field, which protects us from dangerous galactic and solar radiation. Scientists have been able to calculate that the Earth's magnetic field has weakened by 9% over the past 200 years. As a result, an area of weak magnetic field known as the South Atlantic Anomaly has been formed between Africa and South America. Moreover, in the last 5 years, another such area has developed southwest of Africa, and it is actively growing. The electromagnetic field is generated by the dynamo mechanism in the Earth's core, and therefore it is evident that changes in the magnetic field indicate changes in the core. Another proof of the anomalous behavior of the Earth's core is the appearance of a powerful neutrino emission from the bowels of the Earth, which was also registered in the year 2015. An even more anomalous event occurred in the year 1998. Scientists detected a sharp bouncing displacement of the core by observing the Earth's center of mass using satellites. As a result of the bounce, the core shifted sharply northward toward the Tamir Peninsula. At this time, scientists at the Medicina station in Italy detected a gravity burst. The velocity of the planet also increased, as well as the centrifugal force. Concurrently, there was a dramatic change in the shape of the Earth. As measured by a laser rangefinder system from the US satellites, the planet began to expand abnormally along the equator, whereas before that, the trend had been the opposite. Because of the increased centrifugal force, magma plumes began to rise closer to the surface, which increased the geothermal heat flow and the number of earthquakes. As a result, new faults and cracks began to form, through which water from the surface began to escape deep into the earth. In the same year, there was a sharp increase in the speed of the North Magnetic Pole's drift. The bounce of the Earth's center of mass became the key factor of the system's imbalance. This event led to a dissonance among all the Earth's shelves, which caused a dramatic increase in many natural disasters: earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, and so on. It is worth noting that during the same period, there was also synchronous bouncing changes in natural processes on the Sun, Moon, Mars, and other celestial bodies of the solar system. And this also occurred because of the displacement of their cores. This has led scientists to believe that such synchronous bounces may be caused by the influence of external factors on the solar system. But over the past 50 years, our planet has continued to accelerate. Since the year 2016, this trend has intensified even more. July 19, 2020, was recorded as the shortest day in the history of observations. Even seemingly insignificant acceleration of the huge mass of the Earth will cause catastrophic consequences in the near future.
In 1998, there was another shift of the core. Such catastrophic changes in the core lead to acceleration of the planet's rotation and deformation of the Earth's crust. It is important to note that the number of earthquakes at the ocean's floor began to grow precisely because of this. Professor Arthur Vitorino of the Maryland Institute has discovered unprecedented increase in seismic activity along the borderlines of thin oceanic plates in the middle of the oceans that began in the very same 1995. The map on the right side of the screen shows where exactly this activity is increasing. And the graph on the other side of the screen is showing the spike in the earthquakes in 1995. We are all intelligent people and we clearly understand that these changes are not caused by humans' influence. Humanity could not influence seismic activity on the ocean floor.
Yes, and there is also no way that humans could affect the shift of the magnetic pole or rotation axis of the planet, and let alone bouncing of the core. But besides the increase in the number of earthquakes at the ocean floor, the number, magnitude, and intensity of earthquakes on land is increasing all over the world. And the most frightening thing is that the number of deep focused earthquakes is increasing. So let's also watch a video about that.
Earthquakes and volcanoes. The power of the Earth's interior manifests itself unpredictably on the surface, causing colossal damage and destroying all life around. In the recent years, these emissions of planetary energy have been growing exponentially in gigantic leaps. Something inexplicable has started to happen. In 2015, a record-breaking earthquake was registered near Japan at a depth of 751 kilometers. This had never been seen before, and indeed was considered impossible by the scientific community. Earthquakes were thought to occur only in the Earth's crust and upper mantle when blocks of lithospheric plates break and shift. At great depths, matter is more malleable and does not behave like brittle glass, but rather like plasticine. There is nothing breakable there, but earthquakes do happen, and that is a fact. The horrible part is that their number and magnitude are increasing. Earthquakes are not only becoming deeper, but they are also getting closer to the surface, which means they are becoming more destructive. Today, more and more of them are concentrated at a depth of about 10 kilometers. For example, an entire series of 36 seismic events of significant magnitude from 4.5 to 7.0 occurred near New Caledonia in early April 2022. Just one earthquake of similar magnitude and depth in August 2021 in Haiti caused fatal damage and killed more than 2,200 people. The deadly threat is increasingly rising to the surface of the Earth. Right before our eyes, cracks are appearing and faults are being activated. The ground is literally crumbling beneath our feet, swallowing whole houses. Faults have been activated in the USA, Kenya, Iceland, Turkey, China, Lake Baikal, and other regions. Each of them can cause enormous damage. It is an abyss opening underfoot. The number of observed earthquake swarms, that is, of clusters of rhythmic shocks, is increasing on the planet. A swarm is characterized by almost similar magnitudes of seismic events that occur at short intervals in a local area. The number of seismic events in individual earthquake swarms has increased from a few or few dozens to hundreds and sometimes thousands. Their magnitude and duration have increased. This is due to the intrusion of magma and hot gases into the microcracks of rocks. Swarms are now being recorded not only in fault zones and near volcanoes, but also in more quiet regions. The Palghar region of India, located in a quiet continental region, began swarming with earthquakes in September 2018 and continues to this day. In just 2 years, about 5,000 earthquakes of a magnitude up to 3.8 occurred within a small area. And what has been happening since August 2020 and the Bransfield Strait off of Antarctica has been described by scientists as a huge magma intrusion. Some 85,000 earthquakes have been detected in the first 6 months, with a maximum magnitude of 6. Normally, these processes occur over geologic timescales as opposed to over the course of a human lifespan, said study co-author Simone Czeska, seismologist at the Research Center in Potsdam. Magma is literally devouring the lithospheric plate from the inside, having traveled 2/3 of the way to the surface in 6 months. Only 5 kilometers of rock remain before a catastrophic rupture occurs. And that is just one example. Similar things are happening everywhere.
Note that 85,000 earthquakes have occurred right off the coast of West Antarctica, where the Weddell Sea is heating up. Doesn't that alert anyone? For the cause is the same. Magma is coming to the surface, and it causes both earthquakes and heating of the ocean.
And it is important to note that not only did seismic activity begin to increase as a result of core displacement, but another catastrophic anomaly appeared as well. Everyone knows very well that Siberia is now warming up 3 times faster compared to the rest of the world. And this is happening in the least populated area with virtually no CO2 emissions. However, in these very places, people have started to witness water boiling in their wells and fires starting to break out from under the snow. Now that is alarming. And look at the trajectory of the direction of the core shift. If you looked at the projection from where the core shifted, it is under West Antarctica towards Siberia. That means the shifting of the core caused 2 waves of magma to rise from the Earth's inside in opposite directions, intensifying the rise of magma, which began in 1995.
However, the rise of magma occurs not only in Siberia and West Antarctica. Let's watch a video about that.
In recent decades, the Earth has been accelerating its rotation by leaps and bounds, which means the centrifugal force is increasing. As a result, at the equator, the planet is expanding and increasing in volume. This causes the Earth's crust to crack and geological faults to activate. At this time, processes similar to blood cavitation occur in the Earth's interior with magma. Blood cavitation during Chyson disease is a life-threatening phenomenon known to divers during rapid ascent to the surface. Due to the sudden drop of pressure, the dissolved gases in the blood are released instantly, causing the blood to boil. The resulting gas bubbles destroy the walls of the blood vessels. In the Earth's interior, sudden pressure drops are associated with an instantaneous increase in centrifugal forces during a sudden acceleration of the planet's rotation. This causes magma to rush abruptly towards the Earth's surface. Lithospheric plates are destroyed by cavitation, microbursts of active gas-saturated magma. Just as the walls of vessels are fused by the bubbled blood of a diver, this process accelerates itself, affecting deeper and deeper layers of the mantle. That is why we are seeing ever more powerful and deep earthquakes and seismic swarms. The proof that this process is increasing and accelerating can be seen in the massive double-deep earthquake in Peru. Meanwhile, the expansion and intensification of the pressure on the crust due to the cavitation of the magma serves to intensify the erosion process. What does that mean for us? Soon, we will see eruptions and earthquakes of a magnitude that our civilization has never experienced before. But an even greater threat is fraught with those volcanoes that have not yet woken up. Giants, such as Yellowstone, Campi Flegrei, Elbrus, Flach, Kikai, are called doomsday volcanoes because the eruption of any of them could lead to the extinction of all life on Earth. They have held back the power of the Earth's interior for a millennia, but now they are showing signs of activation. When the magma beneath these volcanoes reaches a critical point, the scale of the catastrophe is hard to imagine. Our planet is splitting apart, yet we are busy with something else.
The acceleration of centrifugal forces and the shifts of the core begin to push magma sharply to the surface. And this has not been happening for millions of years, but this is happening right now. Recall how quickly magma surfaced near Antarctica. Magma erodes and heats up the lithospheres from the inside.
Yes, and it turns out that now magma rises up and expands in volume. And because of this, it's increasing pressure on the Earth's crust. Because of this, there is an increase in the number of earthquakes at a shallow depth. And the rise of magma itself can be seen by looking at the increase in the number of earthquakes at great depth. The rise of magma provokes volcanic eruptions.
Yes. We should keep in mind that there are 3 known supervolcanoes in the US, and the most famous one is Yellowstone, which is giving alarming signs of seismic activity. So when magma gets even closer to the surface, supervolcanoes will inevitably react.
So what are the reasons for this instability in the core, which causes the acceleration of the planet's rotation and pushes the magma outward? Let's watch a video on this topic.
The cycle of terrible cataclysms, which the Earth now has to go through, occurs on the planet every 12,000 years, and it has been described by various researchers in many scientific works and books. The Earth's core creates a magnetic field. The Earth's magnetic poles are movable. Their sudden shift is called geomagnetic excursion. And note in which time intervals such excursions took place over the last 120,000 years. The interval between them is approximately 12 to 13,000 years. It is shocking that at the same time, there were sharp rises in world sea level, glaciation, and the strongest volcanic eruptions. Each time during such excursions, the magnetic field of the Earth became 8 to 10 times weaker. And this led to an increase in the flux of cosmic radiation. Douglas Vogt, geologist, has analyzed the carbon-14 dating of sediments. The data obtained irrefutably prove that glacial periods have cyclicity of about 12,000 years.
You have the Earth's magnetic field reverses, and immediately after that, you have the Ice Age. The reason why the Earth's magnetic field reverses is because of this clock cycle.
And also geologists recorded that over the past 2 million years, simultaneously with the glacial periods and polar inversions, there was an increase in volcanic activity. Another proof of the 12,000-year cycle was the eruption of the Toba volcano 72 to 74,000 years ago. And the humanity passed through a so-called bottleneck. In other words, it was one step away from extinction. The most destructive volcanic eruption in history, which occurred in other 12 millennial cycles, were the eruption of Phlegraean Fields, Taupo volcano in New Zealand, Lake volcano in Europe, Mount Vesuvius, Santorini, Ira, and many others.
Lava flows, organic material in glacial till and moraine, all pointed to these 12,000-year cycles. Even with the standard deviation in carbon-14 dating, it's obviously that's what's happening.
How? Catastrophic volcanic eruptions. Atmospheric temperature changes by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. World ocean level change by 20 to 50 meters. Large-scale glaciation that froze such giants as mammoths, and geomagnetic excursions could have occurred almost simultaneously within a short period of time? Since every cycle is accompanied by a change in the magnetic field and powerful volcanic eruptions, it clearly indicates that the cycle is associated with changes in the planet's core, just as it is happening now. Researchers believe that this cyclicity is galactic in nature, that is, it is related to the rotation cycle of the galaxy. Every 12,000 years, radiation from the center of the universe affects the solar system and even influences the sun. In 1998, not only was the Earth core recorded jumping, but also those of the Moon, the Sun, and other planets. In recent decades, scientists began to record drastic climate changes on all planets and satellites of the solar system, an increase in the number of giant storms and hurricanes, abnormal temperatures, an increase in volcanic and seismic activity. Now, an increased flux of cosmic radiation due to low activity of the sun is detected on Earth. Scientists have found evidence that a similar bombardment by cosmic rays occurred 12,500 years ago. In addition, every 12,000 years, an unknown flow of violent cosmic energy from the center of the universe comes to our planet. This high-energy impact occurs at the micro level and has enormous potential to trigger a shift of the planet's core. Galactic radiation disrupts the life cycles of the biosphere. Trees begin to massively emit more carbon dioxide, whereas swamps emit compounds of deadly gases. This time, Earth may become another dead planet, just like Mars. The planet's immune system is now destroyed by the toxin that our technogenic civilization has excreted. The planet's diseased organism might not survive the enormous stresses which cyclicity creates every 12,000 years. Every 24,000 years, disasters are even more devastating since the solar system gets closer to the radiation from the center of the universe. We're now getting into the point of the near interaction. The planet is living its last years, and so are we if we remain idle.
The cause of the climate change is the 12,000-year cycle of cataclysms. As you could see in the video, this cycle is clearly visible in the geological evidence. But this time, we are in a much worse shape than in the most recent cycle. Because according to all the evidence, the cataclysmic cycle we are entering is the 24,000 years one, which means it is even more destructive. At the same time, the planet's ecology is exhausted and its immunity is weakened. But we have not even reached the highest point of this cycle, while the cataclysms are progressing with terrifying speed. This means that when we reach the peak of the cycle, the planet may not survive.
Note again that climate change is now occurring on other planets of solar system as well, and humans have absolutely no influence on it. Based on this fact, we understand that this is an external influence. This is some kind of radioactive influence. And every 24,000 years, cycle has a stronger impact on our planet. It is this radiation that sets the cyclicity of cataclysms and affects the core of the planet.
We see that the world is on the edge. We see it with our own eyes. Everything around us is falling apart. We, Americans, are losing what we've been building during our lifetime, and we can't hold on to it. It's a tragedy. But what are we doing to prevent it? Nothing. Today, as we face the climate, we are at best only fixing its impact. Have you seen the graphs? Disasters will only keep escalating, and more people will die. And what are we doing? We're just watching, listening to the news and thinking with relief, this didn't happen to me. Isn't that so? But the truth is, by the time we see the tragedy outside of our window, it will be too late to make things right. Tell me, how will you and I be able to make things right when our Earth will turn into Mars? That won't be possible because there will no longer be people left to make it happen. But is it the fate of Mars that attracts us? Is a red, lifeless Earth our dream? No. Every person wants to live, and so the most important thing for Americans to do now is to survive, to stay alive. But we can only survive if we unite. America is a great country, but where does the essence of greatness of America lie? Is it in the territories, in the soil, or in those who are controlling it? No. America's greatness is in its people, in us, Americans. If there are no Americans on American soil, will there still be an America? Ask yourself this question. And we are heading towards the point where soon there will be no America and no Americans left. Is America's greatness in the nothingness? America means Americans first and foremost. But a true American is the one who always stands up, not only for himself, but for the whole world. The one who seeks to save the whole world. So after all of these facts, any reasonable person would ask, what should I do? And we know what to do. We need to build the creative society. Our only chance of survival is to build the creative society, not just in America, but all over the world. After all, it is impossible to save a particular individual country when the whole world is collapsing. We Americans must set an example to the world and unite, forgetting all strife. Gone are the times of strife, conflicts, wars, personal gain and clan ambitions, and all the other things like that. These times are over. Yes, things are still progressing by inertia, but at this rate soon, there will be no one left. So in order for us to save our lives, we will need to change. All people need to start living with a clean slate, to forget, forgive, and never again remember all the things that have divided us, all the things that have hindered us. We have explored many options, and nothing but the creative society can save us. Any other path leads us to certain death. Only in the creative society can we bring together the scientific potential and find an escape from the climate threat. The creative society is the best possible solution for people.
We can find this solution because there is always a counteraction to any action. A high energy flow is approaching our planet, and we can put up a defense if we understand what kind of force and in what capacity we should counteract it with. It is necessary to unite all honest, conscientious researchers from various fields of science, technical experts, engineers, practitioners, and theorists who are ready for new discoveries because the task is multidimensional and multi-level. It is necessary to set one common goal at the level of all countries, to provide scientists with funding, access to advanced technologies, and truthful statistics of climatic and geophysical services. Even with our current technology, it is quite possible to counteract cosmic radiation. If the goal is one and society prioritizes preservation of civilization and every human life, then humanity will be able to find a solution on how to manage this high energy flow. But we have very little time to find the solution. It is possible to unite the scientific potential of conscientious researchers only with the absolute support of the entire society in all countries. There can be no place for competition, private interest, and lust for profit. Openness of information for research may be available only in the creative society format, where there is no reason for wars and conflicts. In order to establish such a format of society, unification of all 8 billion people,
Thank you, Olga and Tali. Today, we heard the real picture of true causes of climate change on our planet. This information is publicly available on our platform, creativesociety.com. You can analyze and study it in depth for yourself. Today, we touch only a little bit on the causes of climate change. We do have a more detailed report on the dynamic of climate disaster and the rate at which they are escalating and progressing. And on November 12th, we will be ready to present it to you. We invite you to the Open International Online Forum, Global Crisis, Our Survival is in Unity. It is a large-scale and unprecedented event organized thanks to the unification of millions of people from 180 countries on the platform of Creative Society Project with simultaneous interpreting into 150 languages. It will be broadcasted on tens of thousands of channels of social and media platforms, TV and radio stations around the world. The event has been initiated and it's being implemented on a volunteer basis by people's own efforts and resources. Organizers of the forum are volunteers from 180 countries. All participants of the forum, including professionals, scientists, and experts, act on the volunteer basis. At this forum, you will learn the truth about the scale and causes of all global crises that our society is facing now worldwide, and the impending disasters of the planetary scale. But most importantly, you will be presented with the practical solutions to solve all of these crises through building the creative society.
That's really great news. Every human that cares about their own well-being and lives of their close ones should join in and share this information with as many people as possible. Because this is life-saving information that is essential for humanity to be aware of, so we all together could make a right decision. we see how serious the climate situation is. Statistics now show that extreme climatic events become more severe each year, with an extremely disturbing progression. And to go through the climatic challenges that our humanity is about to face within the next few years, it is essential to have reliable sources of energy. Without it, it will be much worse. Let's talk to John Ahn, who has been researching on this topic. John?
Thank you, Tali. I've always been interested and supported developing sustainable energy. Like many here today, I dreamed of living in a clean, high-tech, and a wonderful world. I thought that solar and wind was the energy for the future. But for years, I've also found a lot of contradicting information, so I spent time understanding the facts. And what I found was shocking, and I wanted to share this information today.
Today, everyone is concerned about climate change. Big climate conferences are being held where leaders of countries, scientists, and representatives of corporations are looking for solutions together. It seems that the problem is about to be permanently solved. We will all tighten our belts and switch to renewable sources. We are assured that if the chimneys or thermal power plants stop smoking, all nuclear power plants are closed, they build solar and wind power plants everywhere on the planet, and everyone replaces gasoline cars with electric vehicles, then by 2050, we will have a carbon-free energy system. This will supposedly save the world and preserve the environment, and everyone will be happy. Therefore, it is suggested that all the best minds and resources of humanity are directed to the development of green technologies. But what are we missing? Will it really save us? With all this, aren't we losing the most valuable things? Time and opportunities. So let us figure it out together, step by step. Today, renewable sources make up about 21% of total energy in the United States. Land footprint of energy systems displaces natural ecosystems, leads to land degradation, and creates trade-off for food production. The so-called green energy requires at least 50 times more land than the conventional power sources to generate the same amount of energy. Currently, solar and wind generate 13% of electricity in the US, and for now, occupy a relatively small area. However, Princeton University studies showed that if 98% of electricity is generated from solar and wind, land footprint will increase by more than 35 times, and this would be taken from the land that feeds us. The green energy requires at least 10 times more materials than conventional power sources. All this continues to contribute to the depletion and pollution of the planet. Solar panels. In the year 2021, a new solar project was installed about every 60 seconds. Manufacturers project the service life of these panels to be 20 to 25 years. But recent studies have shown that the performance of solar panels is much lower than declared. Moreover, their efficiency degrades every year. As a result, they have to be replaced much earlier, therefore creating more waste than originally expected. Currently, there are no disposal regulations for solar panels in the United States. Most of the solar panel wastes are either exported to third world countries or sent to landfills because it is 10 times cheaper to dispose than to recycle. Thus, by 2035, the discarded panels are expected to outweigh the new units by 2.5 times. Note that the waste from solar panels is 300 times more toxic than nuclear waste. It contains heavy metals such as lead, cadmium, and mercury. These metals can leach out and get into the groundwater to impact human health. As you can see, this only makes the environmental situation worse, and this is just the tip of an iceberg that we have to look into deeper. So, what's wrong with wind farms? Observations have shown that wind turbines alter local climate. A recent study from Harvard University showed that if all U.S. electricity were generated by wind turbines, it would cause a warming of 0.43 degrees Fahrenheit in the continental United States. This is even higher than the average temperature increase on our planet in recent decades. Wind turbines also generate low-frequency noise, which poses health risks to nearby residents. Adverse effects include sleep disturbance, headaches, and cardiac arrhythmia. Moreover, wind turbines are annually killing millions of bats and birds, including slow reproducing species, which negatively affects the ecosystem. At that, we are not even talking about their maintenance, which implies building special purpose vessels, expensive utility high-rises, and constant replacement of blades. Just one wind farm during its lifetime requires more than 350 tons of lubricants, which is equal to 6 railroad tank cars, which are, by the way, also produced from non-renewable resources of the planet. Just think about it. The size of the blades can be as big as the length of a soccer field. And do you know what they are made of? That's right, of that very plastic that we continue to struggle with so unsuccessfully around the world because of their gigantic size and hazardous chemical composition. They can't be recycled. So the classic solution is that the blades are taken to landfills and covered with soil. It is expected that the amount of waste from wind turbines will increase by 20 times by 2050. After all that, do you still think wind power is environmentally friendly? Electric cars are considered to be a part of the solution to the green energy transition, but electric vehicles, because of their batteries, require more materials, especially metals. Lithium and cobalt, which are required for electric vehicles, are not used in gasoline cars. By 2030, 300 million electric vehicles are expected to be on the road. So, to estimate the global impact, let's look at the numbers. The amount of fresh water required to mine lithium and cobalt for all those electrical vehicles would equal 750 billion gallons, an amount equivalent to more than 12 years of drinking water supply for the entire US population. And this happens at a time when we are experiencing a shortage of drinking water on the planet. Also, the energy required to mine lithium and cobalt for all these electrical vehicles is equivalent to the annual energy consumption of all the US residents. Moreover, in order to produce cobalt, child labor is being exploited in the Congo underground mines. These innovations are being implemented to supposedly allow us to breathe clean air. All this impact on our society and environment will only worsen over the years. Is this new technology sustainable and environmentally friendly? To summarize, considering all of the above information, we should answer the following questions together. Should we continue to actively develop alternative energy technology if it has so many disadvantages? Is it beneficial for us today, or should we put our efforts to find a more effective solution?
We just saw that the so-called green energy destroys the environment immensely. Is that we just don't see what is done behind the scenes. Green energy is not clean or sustainable. Another belief that has been widely promoted is that green energy is cheaper than the traditional sources. Let's look at the official data. And indeed, solar and wind do appear to be cheaper than energy from coal and gas. So you would think more green energy should lower the price of electricity, right? But let's check that with the actual data from the developed countries. This chart here shows the price of electricity versus the amount of green energy installed. You can notice that the more green energy, the more expensive the electricity. In other words, your monthly bill is higher with more solar and wind energy installed. It also means that everything else will get more expensive. So this trend is not what you expected.
This is really shocking. This means that not only so-called renewables are bad for the environment, but they also make electricity much more expensive. So how did they trick all of us into believing that renewable energy is going to save your money when, in fact, it's doing the completely opposite thing?
Yes, because there are unaccounted costs. First, the transmission cost. The energy generated must be delivered to the place where it is used. Solar and wind are more spread out and typically located further away than the conventional sources. That makes the transmission cost of green energy 3 times more expensive than the conventional. Second, the backup generators. Solar and wind do not produce energy when the sun doesn't shine or the wind doesn't blow. Then natural gas is burned. But this is done in a small capacity generators with low efficiency. The price of this energy is very expensive. Third, recent policies to support green energy. They increased taxes and fees on the traditional power sources, and this also made the green energy appear artificially cheaper. And our country is adding a lot of green energy every year. It means that our electricity bill will continue to grow. But that is not the biggest concern here. The main problem is that the green energy is weather dependent. It's unreliable. Just imagine, we have a blackout from extreme weather. Suddenly, the power cannot be supplied. There is no air conditioning, no heating at home. Imagine hospitals can't perform emergency operations. Patients on a life support will not get help. Many people are going to die. In addition to that, imagine that the payment system suddenly stops from blackout. You can't buy food, medicine, you can't get gas, you can't cook. There are no lights and water at home. Not only for a few hours, but for many days and even weeks. That will lead to chaos and violence on streets.
Okay, so not only this renewable energy is bad for the environment, it drains your pockets dry, but it's also extremely low in reliability and can lead to major blackouts. Doesn't it make it more sense to call it not renewables but unreliables? Aren't we supposed to think about what kind of situations are we getting ourselves into ahead of time before they actually occur, like they did in California just this year, where we've seen the results of such policies? This summer, when they have rolling blackouts like third world country and people can't use ACs during heat waves, and God forbid them to even think about charging their electric vehicles.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. We need to be prepared for a shortage and outage of power. And this is why, right now, if we face an emergency situation, our country has enough coal and natural gas stored to supply electricity for 2 months. But with green policies, this storage will decrease to less than 1 month. The proposed solution is to replace coal and gas mostly with batteries as energy storage. And of course, everyone agrees that having energy storage is essential, especially for the weather-dependent green energy. But no one really seems to talk about how much batteries we need and how much it will cost. So I was curious to check especially how much electricity would cost if we would install, say, 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month of lithium battery storage in net zero 2050 scenario. Because of the batteries, the electricity bill for American household will increase. But the question is, by how much? If we look at this chart, just for 1 day of storage, your monthly electricity bill of $110 right now will increase to $250 just for 1 day of storage. For 1 week of storage, that will be over $1,000. And for 1 month, over $4,000 per month. That is nearly 40 times more than what many of us pay right now. This is the cost of the reliability of green energy.
Okay, so $4,000 just to have 1 month of storage. And it is in current numbers. So right, with this inflation that we see right now skyrocketing, the prices might even go even more up, right?
But this shows it is unaffordable to have energy reliability with solar and wind. On top of that, there is not enough lithium in the world to build even 1 week of battery capacity. So reliable green energy is not even achievable.
We are really shooting ourselves in both legs by killing our reliable sources of cheap energy for an unachievable fantasy. Renewables, unreliables are clearly a threat to society. So who benefits from promoting it?
It's clear that for some people, fighting CO2 is a business. Going green actually doesn't help the climate. The climate will change whether we go green or not, because a problem stems from changes occurring in the Earth's core. The important thing now is not to point fingers, but to find a common solution, a more rational and sustainable source of energy. Killing existing sources of traditional energy is senseless and anti-humane. The existing energy system has been providing us with cheap and reliable energy, and we need to preserve what we have. And investing in our reliable solar panels and wind turbine is complete nonsense. But science, it keeps evolving, and we did not reach a dead end. There are already better solutions. This solution is called fuel-free generators, and there are already companies that are manufacturing them. These generators, with just small input of energy, can produce much more energy for more than 20 years. This is a solution that can solve problems of sustainability, cost, and reliability. Now, let us watch a short video about fuel-free generators.
Free energy generators have existed since long ago. But why do these technologies remain inaccessible to humanity? An American company has been one of the first in the world to produce magnetic energy generators of up to 25 kilowatts and is already supplying power to customers. A German company produces fuel-free power plants and has branches in several countries. A Korean company has also released a working model of an electromagnetic generator with a capacity of 10 kilowatts. African technology made it possible not only to produce a free energy generator, but also to modernize a vehicle so that it could move without fuel or recharging. Fuel-free generators, FFGs, are power generators with an efficiency greater than 100%, which means they produce more energy than they consume. But the most valuable thing is that this power source generates free and environmentally friendly energy. FFGs may be installed not only in houses and on vehicles, but also on helicopters, planes, and ships. Introduction of FFG technology alone will enable humanity to discontinue using hydrocarbon fuels. Now, let's imagine that every person on the planet would have a fuel-free generator. This means that electricity would become free. We will no longer have to pay for it. But in the consumerist format of society, this would be a great disaster because it would leave millions of people jobless. Those include experts involved in power plant maintenance and gas station employees. Everyone from a director to a janitor at a gas station will lose their jobs. All firms or companies involved in power generation will lose their incomes. While that includes logistic firms, manufacturer of wires, pipes, and even all the machinery which has been necessary for the power plants. Manufacturers, suppliers, and sellers of solar panels won't be needed. Accordingly, hydropower will also be replaced with fuel-free generators, which means that all the employees and professionals who maintain dams will remain jobless. Moreover, this situation will cause a chain reaction. Those millions of people will no longer be able to buy goods and use paid services. Goods turnover as well as manufacturing plants will come to a halt. This in turn will affect billions of people who will lose their jobs and means of subsistence. This will cause a dissonance in the trade and manufacturing sectors, as well as social tension, increasing the gap in society between the poor and the rich. This gap will in turn cause an increase in crime, racketeering, conflicts, confrontations, and discontent with authorities. People will take it to the streets. After all, hunger is the strongest incentive to commit illegal and inhumane acts. All this will lead to chaos. This crisis will affect all countries in general. They will begin to solve problems by force, and this will cause the death of billions of people. All in all, there is a paradox. Introduction of a simple technology that can improve people's lives will lead to a worldwide disaster. However, it is not technology that is a problem, but the state of society today. Thus, we have considered a scenario of events in the consumerist format of society. But there is also another scenario. If we change the format to a creative one, this kind of technology will be quite beneficial. In the creative society, the economy cannot become a threat to the lives of millions of people because the value of human life is a top priority and all conditions of existence are aimed at improving the quality of human life. But that's a different scenario, a choice which has yet to be made by people.
Just imagine the possibilities that this will open before the humankind. Energy-demanding processes will no longer be an issue. Plastic recycling for a clean environment, growing foods indoors using desalination of water to provide enough food and fresh water for everyone. It will be a paradigm shift. And this is only in our power to make this energy available for everyone. And this is only the beginning. Preventative care that will keep us healthy, life elongation technologies, crisis-free and inflation-free economy, universal basic income, and even space exploration. The possibilities are really limitless and will be available for each person because the format of a creative society creates conditions for humanity to thrive. Let's talk more about how implementing creative society worldwide will benefit all of the humankind.
We can see that in today's format, it's impossible to solve the problems that concern all people. The proposed solutions we hear today are not working. Today, we showed the real facts of the true causes of climate change, talked about the economic crisis, mass shootings, green energy, and the scam of CO2. The only way to improve the lives of American people, of all people, is to build the creative society. We have a solution. Today, we need to use it. The creative society is a format where life, freedom, safety, and well-being of each individual are of the highest value, not on paper, but in practice. Society where power of one person over another is absent. People themselves make decisions on key issues together without shifting responsibility to a small group of individuals. Creative society will provide a world without wars, poverty, crime, and violence. Such a society is beneficial to everyone. We will try to answer all the questions you might have about the creative society today. If there's something that is not clear to you, don't hesitate to visit the official website, creativesociety.com, or send us an email at info@creativesociety.com. Let's take a look at social surveys to see what American people really want and what is the American dream to them.
For me, the American dream is, it's just like a land of opportunity. You can do what you want, you can hang out with people you love, you can share all those experiences with others and so many amazing ways.
Okay, so no one has to work 40 hours a week and barely be able to afford their rent or their bills, or not even only 40, like sometimes 80.
Or healthcare.
Yeah, everyone will have healthcare. No one being judging each other by the color of their skin or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think the society of my dreams is where people just treat each other fairly, treat each other like equals.
I want to see an America that is colorblind, that everything from one end of the spectrum, jet black to Snow White, living together, working together, playing together, raising kids together.
Be comfortable, be myself, and people around me can feel like to be themselves and can live comfortably. And
we need to work together to try to create an environment where everybody is accepted. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, white, black, Asian, anything. Everybody needs to be accepted as one. We all bleed the same.
Equal access to education, to healthcare, housing for everyone, basic needs being met.
Being able to have a place that was your own, being able to afford a home, being able to have a good job, raise your family, be safe.
Be able to get your own home, have the freedom to live the life that you want to live and build a family.
My American dream is for my grandchildren is to be safe, out of harm's way.
There would be a lot more stability in society, and I think in a safe and happy world, we would all be able to have our voices be heard.
I would like to live in a society where educators are paid more money, police protection, policemen are paid more money, that you will put education and safety first.
There's nothing more vital than we can do than public education and having a good education system for everyone, regardless of whatever their own family financial situations are, including access, of course, into higher education, where you don't have to go in debt for the rest of your life.
People need free healthcare, I believe, because health is a very important, basic thing that everyone needs.
If I lose my job and my health insurance, I want to know that if I get cancer, I'm going to be okay.
Just a place where we can feel safe.
High quality, equally accessible healthcare for all.
I would love, not with just America, but with world peace.
Peaceful, all living in harmony, doing whatever they want, no judgment.
Being able to comfortably take my kids out and not worry about them walking somewhere and feeling unsafe.
I can go to the grocery store and not be afraid that I'm going to get shot.
Freedom and safety is like something that everybody deserves and desires, and not have to worry about money.
Being able to live without working.
For me, the American dream is political freedom.
We should have our liberty, and we should have all of our freedom that is guaranteed in the Constitution.
It's freedom to own business.
Well, I think a lot needs to change economically with respect to class and the redistribution of wealth. Our tax system, the way our government operates.
To be rich, make money.
Well, I would say just time freedom, financial freedom, because everything that is revolved around money. And I feel like if we just have more freedom in that sense, then we could live a lot happier life and also lead the new generation to generational wealth.
I think it starts with good business opportunities to give everybody the chance to do that.
Going beyond just surviving, but thriving.
When you don't have the financial freedom, you are giving up on many things that you might be able to do otherwise.
There's sufficient resources and equal opportunity to access and gain access to those resources.
To me, a unified world would be a good place to live.
I want to try to travel more, and my American dream would be to work a job I like and be financially stable with that, which sometimes is impossible, and then also get to see the whole world, which I really hope I can do.
But living your best life.
I guess world peace.
Just more love for the community, more bonding between neighbors.
Have the world run by people with some heart and soul.
Is being able to live up to your full God-given potential.
The American dream is everyone getting together, working together, and just making each other happier and healthier as one person. We're all one community.
I would really like to see, hopefully there will be a change or maybe a restart on this world, and United States included, to revamp and revise a whole new beautiful beginning.
I would like to live in a society where there's no envy, where people support each other, where there's always a lot of love and mutual help. And above all, I'd like to live in a peaceful world, one where everything is done from your heart. It comes from your heart.
Unity is a strength. Together we will go far. I mean, those are slogans, but we need some initiative by conglomerating with the different groups where we can come on one platform and everybody can do their part. Somebody is specialized in something, somebody is specialized in something. So if those all hands come together, I think that's the only way. It will take time, but somebody has to take that step.
And we can get a better society.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Roystar Sound Sick here. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, and share this conference on every social media platform. We need to get this information out there. It's time to build the creative society, the society of the future. Let's go. Wow. I can definitely see myself wanting the same thing, freedom and equality. I would like to have enough time to work on things that I like and be sure that my kids have their needs covered. All people need to have financial freedom.
Me too. I would love to live in a safe country, knowing that my kid is safe and is growing up in a violence-free world, in a peaceful society.
Definitely a peaceful society in which my children are guaranteed to have a great education so they could fulfill their potential to the maximum and contribute to society. Let's make the world a better place.
Yes, and for me, healthcare is very, very important, and I would like to see our society being healthy, where all of us are taken care of, the world where all the diseases and sicknesses are being cured. And our high-quality healthcare is available to everyone.
Well, you can see that we're all not that different after all. In fact, we all really want the same thing. And the essence of it can be described in two simple words, the creative society. Let's take a look at the benefits which we all will receive in the creative society and compare it to the American dream.
Safety. In the creative society, human life is the highest value. This society will be safe for you and your family. The latest technologies will be implemented everywhere to help security services stay ahead of the curve. We will finally have a sense of security. Concepts like crime, missing people, killing of children and adults will no longer exist in America. No longer will you be afraid to let your child go to school or outside. You won't be afraid to walk home late at night, go for a jog, or go to concerts. In the creative society, no crime or offense will go unpunished. In the creative society, the safety of each person is the highest priority. Healthcare. In the creative society, healthcare will be top-notch and free for all Americans. Imagine artificial intelligence that incorporates the expertise of all the best doctors in history. It controls high-tech robots that perform tasks of any complexity. These cutting-edge technologies make healthcare in the creative society of a high quality. Right now, health is a commodity, whereas in the creative society, everyone's health is a priority. After all, we benefit from the fact that every person is healthy and we have a healthy nation. Thanks to the development of nanotechnology and artificial intelligence, epidemics, cancer, diabetes, asthma, and all other incurable diseases will be a thing of the past. The very approach in healthcare will change, as it will be aimed at preventing diseases, and in general, we will finally get real treatment and real recovery. With such a development in healthcare and technology, it is quite possible to prolong human life beyond the species limit. The Creative Society is all about healthy and happy people. Education. In the Creative Society, education at any level will be free and available to absolutely every person. Thanks to a new approach to education and advanced technology, you will be able to study and learn new skills anytime and anywhere, as well as easily change careers. Education will no longer be a chore. The process will be engaging and exciting. For example, with the help of VR glasses, you will study the human body from inside, traveling among molecules. In the Creative Society, you will be able to study at any university in the world and learn any profession you want. Economy. No inflation. The first thing that will happen in the Creative Society is writing off all debts and loans from private individuals, abolition of real estate taxes and personal property taxes. There will be no loan interest rates. We will start with a clean slate. All of this will be possible due to a new format of economy that will be designed to benefit the interest of every American. It takes the financial burden off of every family. Workday. By birthright, all American citizens, regardless of their status, age, gender, or race, are guaranteed a monthly universal basic income that will provide for all of your essential needs. And if you want a better life, a bigger house, or a premium car, an airplane, or a yacht, you will be able to easily afford it by working just for 4 hours, 4 days a week. You will have a job that you like and enjoy, one that you really love, and in which you will be able to fulfill your potential to the maximum. All the hard, monotonous, and damaging human health work will be performed by robots and automated systems. This is already being gradually implemented, but in the consumerist format, its large-scale implementation threatens with mass unemployment and the collapse of the economic system. Yet, this is not the case in the Creative Society. It will only benefit humanity. After all, technology will be available to all people. All these innovations will give us a lot of free time. Finally, fathers and mothers will be able to watch their children grow up and spend as much time with them as they want. People will have time for everything: hobbies, self-development, traveling, learning new skills, and a lot more. The Creative Society gives people free time. Every working American will have at least 2 months off. You want to go with your whole family to the Maldives or anywhere else in the world to see some places of interest or visit relatives on other continents. No problem. You'll be able to really spend your vacation the way you want to, rather than opt for what you can afford. Traffic jams. Free roads. It's real. And most importantly, safe ones. There will be no accidents, and we will be able to solve the issue of traffic jams. You will no longer have to waste your time. Every city will have a smart system connected to all cars via artificial intelligence. This system helps regulate and control traffic on the roads and calculate the best routes. Cars in the Creative Society will be able to block the engine start if the driver is intoxicated, analyze facial expressions, detect driver drowsiness and distraction. In case of a threat, the car will signal the driver. If they do not react, the car will turn on the emergency lights, head to the side of the road, and stop. Alert the driver of danger and take control in a critical situation. In the Creative Society, Everything is built around the comfort and safety of humans. Housing. The good news is that we can provide every American with free housing. We already have a huge amount of breakthrough technologies. Some of them already allow us to build comfortable housing quickly and efficiently. In the Creative Society, every American will be provided with a minimum of 650 square feet per person, absolutely free by birthright. If you have a family of 4, you are provided with a house of 2,600 square feet. No mortgage, no rent to pay. You won't have to pay utilities or property tax. The house will be equipped with the most advanced technologies available to society, and that means that all household chores such as washing, cleaning, ironing, and cooking will be done by robots only, which will do that quickly and perfectly. Human beings are not slaves. Human beings should live a free and happy life. Equality. In the Creative Society, all people will have equal rights. There will be no racial division. In the Creative Society, you will have rights in actual fact, not on paper. Ecology and food. In the Creative Society, thanks to the unification of scientific potential, we will be able to solve many problems related to ecology and climate. We will finally have clean air and clean water. Food will be healthy, delicious, and of high quality. You won't have to worry that you'll put on weight and that food will negatively affect your health. Sounds unrealistic, right? Many of us achieved our dreams through hard work and sacrificing the time with our families. But now, we can build the world we all dream about without sacrificing anything. It will be the kind of world we want because we are Americans and we can do it. If you are a true patriot of your country, let's build together this society where every American is happy. Let's give all the people of America the American dream. That is true heroism. We must set an example to other countries because we are the future. We must set one goal for all of America. Join the efforts and act on our desires. We were the first to land on the moon, and we will be the first to build the Creative Society.
Wow. We can clearly see now that the American dream is the Creative Society.
This is awesome. People deserve to live in such a world, an exciting world. I'm sure now you have a few questions. Let's go through them. Let's briefly talk about how this project started and about the 8 pillars. This will give you a lot of insight. How did the project start? As an organization, we have been operating for 11 years. And today, it is a large-scale international movement that is represented in more than 180 countries around the world. For 10 years, together with volunteers and experts, we have been conducting extensive analytical work and numerous social studies and surveys around the globe. Millions of people from more than 180 countries have been interviewed, and experts from a wide range of fields have been consulted. In the course of this lengthy research, we came up with a unified, full-fledged working model for which there is no alternative today. And we named this model the Creative Society. But it is not the name that is important, but exactly the essence and the principle of working of this model. This model is described in the 8 pillars of the Creative Society. They represent people's desires. They stand for what all people want. Now, let's take a look at the 8 pillars.
The first pillar is the most fundamental principle. It declares that human life is the highest value. The goal of society is to ensure and guarantee the value of each human's life. Do you feel the difference with what we're seeing today? For most people, freedom is very important. Life cannot be fulfilling without freedom. The second pillar guarantees that. It declares that every human is born with the right to be a human being. All people are born free and equal. To put it simply, the third pillar removes the ultimate fear, the fear of tomorrow. Each human is guaranteed free provision of essential life necessities, including food, housing, medical care, education, and complete social security. And of course, everyone wants to feel physically safe. A unified global service will protect everyone from any emergencies and threats. For society to function properly and justly, there cannot be any secrets from its citizens. Therefore, transparency and openness of information for all is essential, including the information about the movement and distribution of public funds. Ideology is what shapes society's values and behavior. The prevailing ideology should bring out the best human qualities in people. The sixth pillar guarantees everyone high quality, free education and harmonious development of their personality. The seventh pillar assures equitable distribution of our planet's natural resources among everyone, regardless of nationality, age, and social status. The concept of power in the creative society is absent. People directly participate in making decisions on key issues.
As you can see, these are the core values that are universal to all people, regardless of skin color, nationality, religious, political, or any other affiliations. They are just as universal as the core values that the founding fathers built our great nation on. And we should be the ones to give a new life to these core values. The definition of a true freedom, liberty, and justice. If we implement 8 pillars on a legal level as part of the Constitution, it will guarantee prosperity to each American for many generations to come. This will give practical ability to use our rights.
Thank you so much, Roy, for such a great news. We really like that. And right now, dear friends, let's hear about the Creative Society from a respected oncologist from Kentucky. Dear Dr.
And with our brethren around the world are far more important than the issues that divide us. You really have to think about those 8 foundations of the creative society, and I do. Overall, when you hear them, it's like, well, this is how you interact with other people in the world with love, compassion, and respect. I mean, think how much that would change the world if we all respected the value of human life, if we all felt free to share what we want to share respectfully and could respectfully dialogue about that. Human safety, the importance of open and transparent information to everybody. We can always work together as a creative society and go forward together to help do the best we can, aware of that which binds us, which is far more important and far broad, and yet deal truthfully and honestly with those issues that divide us. I think it's critical for Americans to be an example to the world, bringing forward the goals of the creative society. If we as Americans can understand lovingly and compassionately that which unites us is far more important than that which divides us. I mean, we're the United States of America, not the divided States of America. I think if we go back to that foundation and work together and serve as a model for the rest of the world, I hope we can accomplish that. I think that would inspire other people around the world to think, hey, if Americans can do that as bitterly divisive and divided as they have been and come back together and respectfully and compassionately listen to each other and share, I think that would be amazing. That would be fantastic. And that would make me even prouder than ever to be an American. I think Americans and every society, every person on this planet deserves a creative society.
Thank you so much, Dr. Long. We all feel this need in changing the format. We clearly understand that in the current format, we will not be able to find a real solution to the existing climate crisis. And now we would like to invite you to watch a short excerpt from the program with esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov, Creative Society Questions and Answers. You can watch the full program on the Creative Society YouTube channel.
Because unification in the creative society implies unification on an idea, on the improvement of the quality of everyone's life, our life and your life, friends. It is directed precisely towards making life better, more beautiful, and safer. Excuse me, I will say it straightforwardly and simply, so that you, my friend, can live in a safe world, so that your life is valued more than anything else in the world. We should unite precisely on that, you see? Not just your life, but the lives of your loved ones, your family, and friends. That's what unification is all about. To build a world where no one ever feels hungry, simply so that everyone has enough water, food, and clothing. The creative society unites the whole world. It makes the whole world one big family. But the creative society is for each and everyone, you see? This is the paradox of the creative society. It is for all of us. But at the same time, it is for you, my friend. First and foremost, it is the format that can make your life beautiful, happy, and absolutely safe. And most importantly, the only option that is acceptable to all of us is that format of the creative society, in which we can find what we can use to oppose climate change and how, in reality. And in reality, we will be able to preserve our planet and save our lives together with you, friends, the lives of each of us. So is it worth doing it or not?
Yes, of course.
Of course.
And you know, as of today, there are a lot of people who understand and know that. First and foremost, a lot of intelligent and literate people, and not indifferent to their own lives and to the lives of their relatives and friends. So they, first of all, know and understand what is happening to the climate in reality. Not even to politics, not even to the economy, but to the climate, and understand all the looming threats that nowadays disastrously affect geopolitics, business, and lead to serious clashes at the geopolitical level, and so on. They understand that a little time will pass, and the situation will be much worse. Everywhere, the crisis will progress, and it will be impossible to stop them. Understanding and knowing that, they joined the creative society in the first place. Why? Because they are literate, intelligent people. Let's all become smarter. Let's stop shifting responsibility onto someone else. You see, by shifting responsibility onto someone else, we deprive ourselves of the future, ourselves first and foremost.
Isn't it amazing to know that there's a way out? That there's an answer to all our hopes and our aspirations? Everything we ever wanted our society to be is achievable, and all that it takes from us is to make a few simple steps. You might be asking, what specifically do I need to do? How can we make the creative society our reality?
All the legal and economic and social mechanisms for a peaceful democratic transition are already in place today, especially in the United States. We just need to use them appropriately. Let's start at the beginning. We need to form a public opinion to support the creative format. There has to be a popular demand for it. And popular demand leads to electoral requests. And the electoral request moves the politicians. Let's watch an informational video for more details.
The first and most important step in building the creative society is to let everyone know that such a format exists and the tremendous benefits it will bring to every single person. How can this be achieved? You can. Share the information about the Creative Society on social media. Tell your friends, neighbors, and coworkers, pretty much everyone you know. Tell them how they would benefit in the Creative Society. Wear a piece of clothing with the logo of the Creative Society, such as a t-shirt or a baseball cap. Put a sticker with the Creative Society logo on your car, or install a yard sign. Leave the information about the Creative Society in coffee shops, doctor's offices, your local grocery store, or a hair salon. Don't be shy and talk about the Creative Society on podcasts, radio shows, and TV to share this life-saving idea. If you are a business owner, place the Creative Society banner on your website or add the Creative Society logo on your products. You can place advertisements about the Creative Society in mass media, newspapers, magazines, and on billboards. These are just some examples of how information about the Creative Society can be spread. I am sure you can think of other methods on how to inform the world about the Creative Society. The faster the majority of the population is informed, the sooner we can form a public request or an electoral demand. Only then we can get to the next stage of implementing the Creative Society at the legislative level.
Okay, so now let's move on to the next question that people might have. So what's next? I have told everyone I know. Now what? What do I do? Now let's take a look at the steps of how to make the American dream our reality. How do we implement the Creative Society? Please.
Once you learn about the Creative Society, visit the website creativesociety.com and click the Join Us button to select one of the following options. I support building the Creative Society, but I am not yet ready to officially support the electoral platform. I support building the Creative Society, and I am ready to officially support the electoral platform. I support building the Creative Society, and I am ready to take an active part in this process, as well as to officially support the electoral platform. When a majority of eligible voters support the Creative Society, we can move on to the next step, which is creating an electronic voting platform. The electronic voting platform is a secure online voting application that you can install on your phone, through which people can choose politicians who fully support the Creative Society. This system will allow us to choose candidates who are going to implement the Creative Society at the legislative level. By using the same platform, people will be able to pass bills, adopt laws, and prioritize budget spendings. Moreover, people can revoke any politician from any government office if they are not representing the people's will. The first law that an elected politician must pass is the implementation of the electronic voting platform into the Constitution. The second law that must immediately pass is the incorporation of the 8 pillars of the Creative Society into the Constitution. That will put the value of human life, freedom, safety, justice, and equality in the first place. Passage of these 2 laws changes everything. Integration of the 8 pillars into the constitutions of all countries will make it possible to promptly reformat the values of world society from anti-human to the society where human life is the main priority. The Creative Society motto eliminates concentration of power in the hands of a single individual or group, and key decisions are made by people themselves. People's power is implemented through their active participation in society's life and regular expression of their will via an electronic voting platform. Say yes to the Creative Society. Join now.
Our friends had a chance to speak with the experts. Let's hear from Professor of Political Science at Shippensburg University, author and political commentator. She will explain to us how amendments to the Constitution can be passed.
The pillars of the Creative Society are so idealistic and wonderful and are built upon mankind's best virtues. And I think in an ideal society, in a creative society, the best of us would encompass all of these. We would be creative. We would have justice and equality for all. We would have transparency and openness. We would have safety and freedom, and we would value all lives. And I think that in America, our freedoms sometimes bump up against the freedoms of somebody else. That is another human quality, which, avarice and greed and jealousy, those qualities are not the ones of angels. And knowing this, our founding fathers, the framers of the Constitution, the biggest thinkers of the time, knew that men were not angels. And our Constitution is written specifically understanding that. So the legal process of a constitutional amendment is actually very straightforward, which is that an amendment has to be proposed by 2/3 vote of both the House and the Senate. And then 3/4 of the state legislatures have to pass it as well. So put another way, 67 senators would have to agree to it. And I think it's 435. I think it's like 308 or something like that. I think it's that. Of the House would need to agree to it as well. But let's just say that we could aim for that and that it's possible. Then it would have to be 2/3 of the states as well. There are 50 states. And, so math is not my strong point, but it would have to be 34 states. Okay. If that, again, if that's what your goal is, then that's the process. And it's an uphill battle because the Constitution has been amended a total since 1789 when it was ratified, a total of 27 times. The first 10 we got for free in the Bill of Rights. 2 times were about alcohol, prohibition, which took away Americans' right to drink, and then the repeal of prohibition, which said that was a terrible idea. Everybody gets to drink again. And so that means that in total, 15 times since 1789, we have amended the Constitution.
If we've been able to add 27 amendments to the Constitution, why can't we add another one for the benefit of all Americans?
Yes. And if we unite all our potential and remember that we are American, nothing will stop us on our way to glory. And this will be the best and biggest legacy we can leave to our children and generations to come.
Creative society is the most peaceful and the most appropriate society format in the entire history of humankind. Only in the creative society can we cope with climate threats and the crisis of the entire humanity. The best investment in your future is an investment in the Creative Society. Every active volunteer of the Creative Society, those who are implementing the hardest and most difficult part, that of informing all people, deserve to receive a Peace Prize from the Creative Society. Every participant of the Creative Society deserves to be recognized and remembered in the future by grateful descendants. In a transition to a Creative Society, everyone who devotes time and effort will be rewarded. Let's discuss and bring understanding to this. An award should be structured in such a way that it reflects the efforts of people who inform about the Creative Society. The Volunteer Peace Prize can be broken down into 5 categories. First, those volunteers who currently inform a few people. Those are people who put stickers, "I support the Creative Society," on their cars, who talk to their colleagues, friends, acquaintances everywhere, who work with just a few people will receive $1 million. Second, those people who inform dozens of people, those could be cafe owners, bloggers, those who travel, explain, talk, who are not shy to talk in buses or somewhere else and massively inform dozens of people, they get $2 million. Third, those who inform hundreds of people get $3 million. Fourth, those who have the opportunity to communicate with people and notify thousands of people get $4 million. Fifth, those who are able to inform millions of people, bloggers with multi-million followers, people who speak on huge platforms, who participate in conferences, singers who create concerts watched by millions of people, they will get $5 million. We must all recognize that such incentives will only be given away in a creative society, not now. Awards are determined based on how much personal responsibility a person assumes when making information about the Creative Society available to others. A new history will begin with the names of the volunteers who contributed their hearts and souls to the Creative Society. Building a Creative Society is true heroism. It is saving the lives of billions. It's saving all of humanity. Therefore, we should not only thank such people financially, but also write their names in our history. After all, they really deserve to have their names immortalized. There will be a monumental building raised in honor of those heroes. The building will have 6 floors. Each person's name, each volunteer who informed millions and thousands will be on the first floor. Furthermore, there will be the same gradation from 1 to 5 million Peace Prize recipients. Our 5th floor will be dedicated to the real philanthropists, those who supported the informational stage and made Creative Society possible. On top of the building will be tributes and portraits of those politicians who were so courageous and the first to declare their support for the Creative Society. In addition to helping us create voter demand for a Creative Society, these politicians will remain in the public memory for generations. A Creative Society logo will be affixed at the top of the monument. For the first time, a human civilization, the Creative Society, can be born. And we Americans can be the first to build a Creative Society for us and all of humanity.
Today's conference gave us a perspective on the abyss into which we're hurtling at full speed. We have learned the truth about the causes of climate disasters and the facts that we have very little time left. But despite the gravity of the situation, we have a chance. It's the shame not to take advantage of it. We, Americans, can change everything. We want to live freely, without fear, to have opportunities to develop, to live without lies and manipulation, in a sustainable way, without crisis. We want to live in peace and harmony, to take an active part in the development of society. We want to live in a society that is based on equality and justice, and where the highest value is the life of every person. All of this is our American dream. The American dream is something unattainable for us Americans, like a horizon that only a chosen few can reach. And for the first time, it is very close for each of us, and that is the creative society. The creative society is a model that is fully consistent with our American dream. And if we look more broadly, it is the dream of every person living on this planet. Think about it. While we have the opportunity to live in a beautiful creative society, we still continue to maintain this deadly consumerist format. This is simply absurd. The only people who do not support the creative society are those who do not yet understand what it is. Some people think that the creative society is a revolution. No. The creative society is the refusal of revolutions. There will never be any more revolutions except scientific and technological ones, which should be a continuous and natural development in the creative society. The creative society is the way of evolution. We have always been a leading country and should remain such forever in people's memories. It is with us, Americans, that the building of the creative society must begin. We must be leaders in building the creative society. We must be an example to all of humanity. Americans are the locomotive that had always pulled the whole world towards prosperity. Today, we are faced with the fact that the climate has destroyed all the bridges in our path, and now humankind is doomed. But we can turn our locomotive towards the creative society and save ourselves and the world. Our Hollywood movie heroes have saved the world many times. But now the time has come for real heroes, for the entire human race faces a real threat. Who can do it? No one but us. And that should be our encouragement and our motto. No one but us.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber